Chapter 975. The Battle Banner City's great commander did not make a single contribution and was annihilated in a single day. Not a single one could escape. If the Bramble Flower Town matter could be explained as Miracle City using despicable methods and unknown weapons, what else could they say now? The one who launched the sneak attack was Battle Banner City. Miracle City did not just have a strong offensive ability. They also had a watertight defense. This matter could not be prevented from being spread through the forest. The orc cities did not have any productivity or creativity. They mainly relied on protection fees, extortion, and looting. Now they had suffered 2 consecutive losses, which was a large blow to Battle Banner City. Not only had they lost 2 spirit transformation experts, they had lost all of Battle Banner City's face and their prestige. How could they collect protection fees in the forest? After City Lord Cow learned of this matter, it was like he had disappeared. No one saw him in the city for several days and nights. He didn't come out to pacify the situation or announce a strategy. The discussions in Battle Banner City continued for 3 days before Cow finally appeared again. He announced a general meeting to discuss how to solve the problem in front of them. There's nothing to say. We'll directly fight them to the death. Gather the troops and slaughter all of Miracle City's people. The suppressed rage of Battle Banner City's generals and advisors all erupted at once. This great shame had to be washed away with blood, otherwise how could Battle Banner City continue to stand in the forest? Cow faced the generals who were sharpening their blades, but his attitude was very cold. There was no change in his expression at all as he used his eyes to look at the old troll holding a cane sitting in the first seat on the left. I am also very angry about this matter, but in this special period, everyone must remain calm. This was the troll race's guest official Kino, currently Cow's chief advisor. After the Vice City Lord and the Great Commander were killed, Kino's position in Cow's group had risen and he was now the number 2 person in Battle Banner City. We were defeated because we underestimated Miracle City too much. We can't judge how many cards Miracle City has hidden, so we can't act rashly. Kino, have you been scared out of your wits by Miracle City? Battle Banner City has hundreds of thousands of warriors. Would they be afraid of Miracle City? Kino's position in Battle Banner City was already the number 2 person, but as an outsider, it wasn't easy to accept him. Especially in a situation where everyone had different opinions, naturally he would be rejected by these generals. I didn't say we won't fight. Cow ignored the clamoring generals. Let Kino speak his opinion. Reporting to the City Lord, Miracle City's momentum has grown and the morale of the people has reached its peak. The surrounding tribes cannot be turned and will only work with Miracle City. Battle Banner City still has a strong army, but even if we ignore the unexpected factors and directly take down Miracle City, there are still 3 large problems with doing this. Nonsense. What's wrong with attacking Miracle City? Are you even someone from Battle Banner City? Kino ignored these brainless boorish people and slowly said, First, from these 2 performances, Miracle City's strength is not weak. This is an indisputable fact. There will be losses under a strong attack and the gains will not make up for the losses. Second, it is impossible for Miracle City to take the initiative and there are many people eyeing this fat piece of meat. The reason these fellows haven't made a move yet is because they are watching from the sidelines, waiting for us to fight with Miracle City and then reap the benefits. How can we satisfy their wishes? Third, Miracle City's City Lord is directly appointed by the Elven King and Miracle City's Vice City Lord is the Elven King's daughter. If we attack Miracle City, we will inevitably offend this peak forest of chaos expert. In summary, using the entire city's strength to fight Miracle City to the death is not rational. We must change our strategy. The orc generals were all filled with righteous indignation. But thinking about it, Kino's words weren't without reason. Cow softly asked, Do you have a solution? Kino cupped his hands. Our first non-war method was to pressure Miracle City to side with Battle Banner City. Now that this strategy has been declared a failure, we can't solve this problem without a large-scale battle, so we must fight, but we must make a special plan. Since they had to fight, how should they fight? This one thinks that in the current situation, it is better to share it with many than to swallow it all. Kino slowly explained, there are many powers eyeing Miracle City in this forest, so rather than waiting for both sides to be heavily injured and waiting for them to reap the benefits, we should use this chance to unite all the powers and attack Miracle City together, sharing the benefits together. Doing this will reduce our losses and increase our chances of victory, as well as avoiding future worries. Cao closed his eyes. How do we divide it? Cities and powers align together. This wasn't strange in Miracle City. The problem was that everyone had their own plans and wanted to obtain more benefits, so it was very difficult to divide it evenly. The city, treasures, resources, and source stones, we don't want them, let them fight for them. Kino slowly said, we'll use the name of revenge to steal large amounts of people, seizing the chance to capture Miracle City's city lord Chu Tian and the production and research staff. The large cities in the forest don't know Miracle City's true value, only seeing the superficial benefits. Let them fight for these treasures and land. We'll throw away these hot potatoes and we'll avoid quite a bit of trouble and conflict. We'll also obtain benefits that everyone won't be greedy for. In the future, when Miracle City's technology will all be used by Battle Banner City, it will already be too late for them to find out. The orcs looked at each other in blank dismay. How could there be such a thing as taking over a city and not taking anything but people? Alright. Cao opened his eyes and a glow flashed in his eyes. I'll leave this matter to you. I want to see the results as soon as possible. I won't disappoint the city lord's expectations. Kino left Battle Banner City to visit the nearby cities as an envoy. An explosive piece of news appeared in the Forest of Chaos. In the Winged Race's Cloud Peak City, 100,000 Winged Race warriors moved out. They were like a gray cloud that covered the sky as they charged towards Battle Banner City. In the Green Giant Race's Emerald City, 100,000 green giants passed through the mountains, crushing countless trees and forests along the way. They were like bulldozers as they charged towards Battle Banner City. Other than that, there was news that a spirit insect underground city in the underground world had actually sent out 100,000 spider race spirit insect army under the orders of a spider to gather in Battle Banner City. When these abnormal signals gathered together, there was a message that a war was about to erupt in the forest. The power behind the Winged Race's Cloud Peak City was the Dragon's Ridge. The power behind the Green Giant's Emerald City was the Giant Mountain Range. The underground races were the subordinates of the mysterious Spider Queen. In other words, other than the Sea Race in the Western Sea and the Elves in the Eternal Forest, almost all the superpowers in the Forest of Chaos had gathered together, clearly pointing their spears at Miracle City. Of the 4 allied cities, other than the underground world's spirit insects that were relatively mysterious and not known to many people, the other 3 cities were large cities with considerable weight in the center of the Forest of Chaos. Even if Miracle City faced any one of them alone, they wouldn't have a high chance of winning, not to mention the 4 cities working together. After a few days, outside Battle Banner City, an army of several 100,000 spread out over several miles. The winged race looked similar to humans, only they had a pair of giant bird wings. They were a rare flying race, being born with the ability to fly. The 100,000 winged race could completely suppress Miracle City's weak air force, destroying Miracle City's facilities and defense system from the air. The green giants were a subspecies of the giant race. They were muscular and had dark green bodies. They were over 3 meters tall and their bodies were not inferior to the ogres or minotaurs. Their skin and flesh were hard to penetrate and they had boundless strength, comparable to berserkers. The 100,000 green giants attacking at the same time, this kind of terrifying scene was hard for normal people to imagine. The battle strength of the spider soldiers was not weak. They were good at using poison, making traps, and had very strong scouting abilities. They were especially good at digging tunnels, having the ability to attack enemies with earth spikes and earthquakes. It was hard to defend against them and they were very cunning. Finally, there was the orc army of Battle Banner City. The orcs were very brave and they were definitely the core battle strength of the battlefield. The alliance this time covered the sky, the ground, and the ground. The battle strength gathered was definitely overwhelming and Miracle City could not resist at all. The Wings race leader directly announced, "We want Miracle City's source stones and materials." The Green Giant leader said, Miracle City's city belongs to our Jadeite city. The spider race leader said, the spider race is interested in the mines and Miracle City's underground research facility. Good. Everyone has come from afar. Of course I won't let you suffer a loss. Cal raised his wine cup high up and loudly said, let us drink this wine together and destroy Miracle City in one fell swoop, erasing them from the map of the Forest of Chaos. Good, we'll destroy Miracle City. Make those damn humans scram out of the forest. The leaders saw that Battle Banner City did not fight for benefits and they were all very surprised. It was probably because Battle Banner City had suffered 2 losses at Miracle City's hands, so benefits were not important to Battle Banner City anymore. The most important thing was to destroy Miracle City as soon as possible to restore their face. The 4 cities' allied army was officially formed. This cooperation had a momentum that hadn't been heard of in 100 years. The native tribes in the forest that were wavering all sided with the allied army without any suspense. There was no other way. Although Battle Banner City was cruel, the allied army was too strong. These 4 cities were first-rate cities in the center of the Forest of Chaos, with experts like Clouds and powerful armies. Green City could only be considered second or third-rate. Even if it was renamed Miracle City and Chu Tian's group took over, what could they change in such a short period of time? Even if they brought out all the source energy weapons, Miracle City's small army couldn't stop the elite armies of the 4 cities. Miracle City would definitely lose this battle. Because in front of this overwhelming strength, Miracle City did not have any allies and the Eternal Forest would not help them, so it was futile no matter what they did. Countless forest bandits and natives were forced to join in, and their numbers numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Like this, all the large and small powers in the area were pointing their swords at Miracle City. This was an unprecedented crisis. Chapter 976. The thousands of years of peace in the Eternal Forest was completely broken. The elven singing stopped for the first time in thousands of years and the millions of elves stopped creating art. They all left their little tree houses and gathered in front of the Elven King's palace. They were densely packed like an ocean, each one looking up, waiting for the news to be announced. The Elven King convened an emergency Elven Council. Whether it was the gentle Elven King or the serious Augusta, they all had very serious expressions. Everyone, there is no need to doubt it. This is the power of the ancient tree of life. The ancient tree of life was no different from an ancient spiritual god. After the great ancient era, this kind of divine object could not continue existing in this world. Although the elves, tree ants, and flower fairies had tried to make the ancient tree of life sprout seeds for tens of thousands of years, they did not have much hope. Who would have thought that the ancient tree of life would appear again? This had a very high meaning to the elves. The legends say that the wood elves were born under the protection of the ancient tree of life and had not gone extinct since the great ancient era. The ancient tree of life was not only the ancestor of the elves, it was also the origin of the elven civilization and the source of the elves' power. The ancient tree of life's birth had a very large meaning to the elves. The tree ants and flower fairies chose to believe Chu Tian in the past. It seems like this was the right decision. The elven vice speaker Ulysses had a face filled with excitement and joy. This must be Chu Tian's masterpiece. This is too incredible, he actually did it. Augusta's long white fur trembled a few times. This was also done by that brat? What kind of divine object was the ancient tree of life? A despicable and despicable human, even if he had a bit of intelligence, how could he awaken this kind of divine object? The Elven King Lancelot spoke. No matter the reason for the ancient tree of life's reappearance, I think it is fate's arrangement. This is a large auspicious sign. Our race is destined to prosper once again. Only the ancient tree of life's appearance has shaken the entire forest. Those fellows should have felt it. We have to personally protect the ancient tree of life. Your Majesty is right, Ulysses said in an approving voice. Now that the ancient tree of life has appeared in Miracle City and Miracle City is in danger, we can't just sit here and do nothing. This. Augusta was still as stubborn as a rock. The Eternal Forest can never participate in any disputes. This is a rule passed down by the elves for tens of thousands of years. Do we have to abandon the law of the elves? The elven king Lancelot was not prepared to give in to Augusta this time. The elven law was set down by the ancestors, and the ancestors set this law to regulate the elves' lives. Now that the era is different, if we stubbornly stick to the ancestors' rules, they will become shackles to the elves. The ancient tree of life is the belief of the elves. We can't abandon our beliefs and beliefs. That's right. The council members on the elven king's side all stood up. These people all saw the golden opportunity of a lifetime. The elven law and etiquette had bound the elves for tens of thousands of years. If they could use this chance to break it, the elves would have a chance to rise again. No, this goes against the elves' spirit of law. Augusta fell into a dilemma. This matter is very important. We have to discuss it properly. After all, changing the law is a master. This needs to be discussed by the council. There's no time, Sir Speaker. Ulysses stood up with a serious expression and said, "Every minute we delay now, Miracle City will be in more danger. Perhaps because we are late by a minute, the ancient tree of life will be destroyed. Perhaps because we are late by a minute, not only will the elves regret it for eternity, we will become sinners for all eternity. Sir Speaker, do you want to be despised by your descendants and the elves forever?" That's right. Sir Speaker. We should make a move. The ancient tree of life is not normal. We can rebuild it after the law is broken. I think even our ancestors will understand us. This time it wasn't just the reformist elves who wanted to make a move, even the traditional elven council members wanted to make a move. It was rare for the elven council to be united, but the elven council's leader was Augusta. If he didn't nod his head, the elven council couldn't make a decision. Sir Speaker has always stressed that the elves are a civilized race and each elf has the right to make decisions. Now let's see the will of the people. The elven king did not give Augusta time to hesitate. The millions of elves in the forest raised their heads in anticipation. The elven king appeared on the balcony of the castle at this time, and his voice spread through the eternal forest with the wind. Although it wasn't loud, it was like there was an invisible force that clearly reached the ears of each elf. I have a piece of good news for everyone. The ancient tree of life has been reborn. With these words, the elves all began to loudly cheer. The ancient tree of life is the origin of the wood elves. It has an even brighter power than the well of eternity. The elves will become even stronger under the protection of the ancient tree of life. The elves were filled with excitement as they excitedly hugged and shouted. This was a historical moment for the elves. But now the ancient tree of life is in danger. It can be destroyed at any moment. The elven king paused and the entire forest was filled with chaos. The elves were all worried about the ancient tree of life. We are now faced with two choices. The first is to follow the ancestral rules and stay in the forest. This way we can avoid fighting and we can live in peace, but the ancient tree of life could be destroyed or taken away. The second is to change the laws and leave the forest. We will protect the ancient tree of life and the elves' faith, fighting for a better era and future for the elves. However, we will also be drawn into the flames of war. There will be blood, sacrifices, deaths, and even more dangers. Now, as the citizens of the eternal forest, as someone who has grown up bathed in the light of the well of the sun, please make a choice. As soon as the elven king's voice fell, "Save the ancient tree! Save the ancient tree! Save the ancient tree!" The entire eternal forest was filled with waves of voices. Each elf expressed their strong will and each elf was filled with passion. The elven king turned around. "Chairman, I think as the elven council's chief and a staunch supporter of democracy, you should make a decision." This kind of decision, I don't know if it's right or wrong." Augusta's face twitched a few times, but he still helplessly made a decision in the end. He understood that the ancient tree of life could give the elves a stronger power, but it could also create a strong enemy for the elves, causing the eternal forest to be embroiled in an unprecedented battle. The elves were naturally kind and didn't like killing. Was this right or wrong? Was this a blessing or a curse? First save the ancient tree of life. We'll discuss other matters later. Alright, it's decided. After the chairman agreed, this matter was easy to handle. The Elven Council announced the news and the Eternal Forest was shaken once again. Each elf returned home and took out the longbows and swords they hadn't used in many years. They all aggressively left the forest to save Miracle City. What kind of nonsense is this? Augusta saw that the elves were messy and shouting. It was simply destroying the elegance and civilization of a race. Although the Eternal Forest's elves are very strong, Miracle City is too far from here. We won't make it in time if we move like this. The Elven King thought about it. Go, call Vivian over. Vivian had been under house arrest for several days and her haze had been swept away. Her brows were raised and her face was filled with joy. She came over in high spirits. Royal Father, do you see this? Big Brother Chu Tian did it, he really did it. He is the great benefactor of the elves. I said that he would have a way. Let's not talk about this for now. The Elven King shook his head. Miracle City is in danger, we have to go save them. Do you have more Miracle City scrolls? Vivian knit her brows. This scroll is made from an Eye of the Star fragment. There aren't many left in Miracle City, I only brought this one. Only one? I have a way. Vivian took out an Eye of the Star from her storage pocket. Although I don't know how to make a transport scroll, I can make a transport tower. This Eye of the Star was a cultivation technique that Big Brother Chu Tian left for me. Now we can make a transport tower in the Eternal Forest, and everyone can directly go to Miracle City. How long do you need? At least 3 days. No, 3 days is too long. The Elven King held Vivian's transport scroll in his hand. If it's like this, I'll go first. Vivian's eyes lit up. Royal Father is personally going to Miracle City? That's great. With Royal Father personally making a move, there's nothing to fear from those shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Augusta was a bit worried. Your Majesty is the highest leader of the elves and the ruler of the Eternal Forest. If you personally get involved, perhaps it will alarm Dragon City, Titan City, and Beast King City. The elves are not prepared to directly clash with them. The Eternal Forest hadn't participated in a battle in thousands of years. There had to be a gradual process of adaptation. If we have to fight sooner or later, there is no need to be afraid. Sir Speaker doesn't need to worry. The Elven King gently flicked his finger and the scroll automatically opened, releasing spatial energy. Vivian, I'll leave the matter of building the transport tower to you. Please be assured, Royal Father. It was unknown how happy Vivian was in her heart. Today's matter was a milestone for the elves, and what made Vivian very happy was that she could build a transport tower in the Eternal Forest without needing the permission of elder sister Meng Qingwu and big brother Chu Tian. After all, this matter happened suddenly. Vivian also had her own selfish motives. She hoped that the Eternal Forest would become better and better. The construction of this transport tower was enough to have an immeasurable influence on the Eternal Forest. The Eternal Forest and Miracle City were destined to be closely linked. The elves' lives would become better and better. Chapter 977. Vivian reported the situation to Chu Tian. Big brother Chu Tian, I've finished the task. Is that so? Chu Tian was busy strengthening the divine servants, but when he received Vivian's call, he stopped working. Your speed isn't bad, I'll remember your merit. Go and have a good rest first. In a valley in Miracle City, Chu Tian had placed a spirit gathering array, gathering most of Miracle City's spiritual energy here. It was not inferior to the heavenly cave paradise of the great Zhou country's 6 spiritual mountains. It was not inferior to any natural cultivation treasures on the continent. After all, this was a place he created. The spiritual energy in the Miracle Mountain range was all locked in this valley by the spirit gathering array, therefore it was even more pure. It was even possible to use it to cultivate immortal herbs. Chu Tian felt like he had entered a paradise when he entered the valley. The valley was filled with blooming flowers, and the flower fairies had moved a small part of the flower fairy garden here. Miracle Commerce's tens of thousands of living herbs were all planted here, and the flower fairies were in charge of taking care of them. This was one of Miracle City's secret gardens. There were several hundred flower fairies living in the Miracle Gardens. The flower fairies were aloof from worldly affairs, so they liked this kind of environment. The Miracle Gardens was personally made by Chu Tian, so the spiritual energy here far surpassed the flower fairies' garden. The flower fairies had already considered this their home. The little fox's eyes lit up as it charged into the medicine field, but it was stopped by a group of flower fairies. Lulu placed her hands on her hips in front of the little fox. "Little fox, are you here to steal food again? Are you worried about being spanked?" Chu Tian bent down and picked up the little fox by the neck. He looked at Lulu with a faint smile on his face. "It's been a long time, are you used to living here?" "Ayaya, why did you come?" Lulu and the flower fairies all called out Yaya, wrapping around him, chattering non-stop. "This place is pretty good, it's not worse than the flower fairy garden at all. Moreover, we often rehearse movies and make spiritual spaces, so life is much more interesting than before. Only Big Brother Chu Tian, you're really something, not even coming to see us. Could it be that you've already forgotten about us?" Sorry, I'll definitely come more often in the future." Chu Tian said this in a perfunctory manner before coming to the center of the garden. There was an empty space here that had been specially cleared. It was about 100 meters in diameter, and there was a 6-pointed star-shaped formation set up there. If one looked closely, they would find that each of the 6 corners of the hexagram was a spatial capture array, which was the original technology of the space warehouse. The center of the hexagram was a hexagonal array with a very complex and profound structure. It was connected to the 6 spatial capture arrays. There were several dozen silver energy pillars surrounding the hexagram array, with each one being around 10 meters tall. They were simply like rows of towers that were used to power the source energy array. Chu Tian checked to make sure there were no problems. Vivian was quite meticulous when doing things. "Have your sisters come over," Chu Tian said to Lulu on the side. "We need to start working." Lulu and the flower fairies revealed serious expressions. They knew what Chu Tian wanted to do. This was something that the flower fairies had wanted to do for thousands of years. If Chu Tian could really do it, he would be a great person that could create miracles. "Take out the seed first." Lulu took out a very normal-looking seed. This seed did not have any special characteristics. It was simply like a stone that could be picked up from the side of the road. "Please place the seed in the center. The entire process will require the support of the flower fairies." The flower fairies carefully placed the seed in the center of the hexagram array. Several hundred flower fairies reached out their hands around the seed and a faint glow was released from their palms. It wrapped around the seed and slowly seeped into the seed. There was no effect at all. The essence of the flower fairies could nourish top-quality immortal herbs, but it had no effect on the seed at all. It was like it was just a normal stone. At this time, Chu Tian opened the source energy array. The 6 spaces were captured by the source energy array and the primordial space aura was extracted from them. Finally, it was directed to the center of the hexagram array and like a sponge absorbing water, the seed instantly swallowed the spatial aura. After around 10 minutes, suddenly there was an almost undetectable cracking sound. On the rough stone surface of the seed, there was actually a small crack. Suddenly there was an incomparably thick energy that was released from within. When Chu Tian felt this energy, he felt like all the pores on his body had been opened. What kind of ancient and pure life force was this? "Ah, there's a reaction. There's a reaction." The flower fairies cried out in pleasant surprise. But now there was a small change, and for this stone to completely germinate, it was not something that could be done in a single day. Chu Tian felt traces of energy leak out and his meridians became clear. If there was a bit more, he didn't know what kind of effect it would have. Interesting. Was this the legendary tree of life? Chu Tian said to Lulu, "There is only one chance like this. If we fail, it will be harder to awaken the seed next time. You have to focus all your attention. Even if the sky falls down, you can't do anything. Do you understand?" "We will definitely succeed." The flower fairies' voices were a bit trembling. Awakening the ancient tree of life seed, this was their dream for thousands of years. When Chu Tian found Vivian, she was eating fruits and chatting with Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun. "Big Brother Chu Tian, how is it? You did pretty well." She was almost tired to death in this period of time, but she couldn't do anything about it. Who told Miracle Commerce to only have 3 people with spatial abilities? Chu Tian would not personally do this, and Meng Yingying's mirror image ability was only half-baked. If it wasn't me, who else could do it? She was very tired, but playing her unique role made Vivian feel very proud. At least it was better than working in the City Lord's fort all day. After all, in terms of managing a team or a city, she couldn't even compare to one of Meng Qingwu's fingers. What did Big Brother Chu Tian want to do? Did he really think he could awaken the ancient Tree of Life seed? Whether it was the flower fairies, the elves, or the Treants, they had all been studied for over 10,000 years. This was impossible. So many things have happened in the past few days. Those green frogs deserve to be unlucky. Vivian took a hard bite of the fruit, like she was treating the fruit as City Lord Cow. She used her teeth to crush it, provoking our miracle city. They're tired of living. Right. The 2 girls nodded. Miracle City was becoming more and more prosperous with each passing day. Miracle City was not just a city managed by Miracle Commerce, it was also the perfect home that everyone worked together to create. No matter who it was, they were filled with feelings for this city. Sirs, sorry to disturb you. Zero's voice came through the speaker in the room. The Vice City Lord has an urgent matter. She asks you to see her in the discussion hall. Meng Qingwu had an urgent matter? They did not dare be slow. Vivian teleported and everyone arrived in the discussion hall. Chu Tian saw a figure he hadn't seen in a long time. She had a graceful figure, long white hair, and the characteristics of a spirit beast. It was the fox beauty Dolores. Dolores was Miracle City's finance minister and was in charge of managing the city's caravans. Wasn't she away all this time? Why did she suddenly come back? She most likely used a rare city return scroll to instantly return to the city. Looking at her panting and anxious expression, as well as Meng Qingwu's serious expression, something terrible must have happened. Young miss, what happened? I'm afraid it's not a small matter. Meng Qingwu said, let's listen to the information Dolores brought back first. The Fox People's caravans finally found a few partners, but they all chose to separate themselves from Miracle City in a single night, even wanting to expel the Fox People. Dolores spoke of the recent matters. I've asked around and finally found out the reason. They're all prepared to join the 4 Cities Alliance to deal with Miracle City. 4 Cities Alliance? Meng Yingying felt this was strange. What 4 Cities Alliance? You don't know, but Miracle City's recent performance has made the surrounding powers drool. Because of Miracle City's fast development and strength, these large powers feel threatened and have already become the target of everyone. Dolores said with a serious expression, Battle Banner City, Emerald City, Cloud Peak City, and Crypt City, these 4 cities have decided to work together. They have mobilized over 500,000 people and they are all their elites. The most terrifying thing is that their momentum is too strong this time. There are many large tribes and local powers in the Forest of Chaos that are trying to fish in troubled waters. Their troops are quickly growing and I suspect it will surpass 1 million people. Everyone was stunned. 1 million? 1 million people scale. And they were gathering the strength of the 4 cities? Miracle City had no chance of winning no matter what. What is the current gathering situation? Meng Qingwu quickly asked, how much time do we have to prepare? There's no time. When I came back, the 4 cities' armies were already gathering and the forest tribes and locals were responding. Dolores said with a pessimistic expression, Miracle City was transformed from the gnomes' green city, so whether it is in terms of defense or diplomacy, they are very weak. We can't find any allies at all and we can't resist this power. Our current situation is very bad. Miracle Commerce has met a large problem this time. Meng Qingwu had guessed that Battle Banner City would use external help, but she never thought that they would gather this much strength. How could Miracle City just meet trouble? This was simply a disaster. What should they do? What should they do? Everyone's eyes fell onto Chu Tian. Who would have thought that Chu Tian would spread out his hands? Don't look at me like this, I'm not a god. With the 4 cities working together, even if I have heaven-piercing methods, I won't be able to change anything in this little bit of time. Even Chu Tian couldn't do anything? Did Miracle City really have no hope? Dolores's face turned ashen. All these days of hard work were going to disappear like this? You don't need to be too anxious, there will be a way. Chu Tian suddenly said in a profound voice, Vivian, can you take me to the Eternal Forest? You want to go to the Eternal Forest? Humans can't enter that place. What are you going there for? Chapter 978. The heaven and earth phenomenon brought by the ancient tree of life made the joint army pause for a moment, but under Cao's strong orders, the army quickly resumed their offensive. Miracle City's situation was instantly filled with danger. The Spider Ray soldiers have already dug a path to Miracle City and are now directly attacking Miracle City. The Wings Race soldiers have already crossed the defensive line and are suppressing Miracle City from the air. The Green Giants and Orc Cavalry are quickly infiltrating. Miracle City's defenses are already collapsing. This news filled Cao's mind with excitement. Even if Miracle City had risen in the last month or two, their foundation was still a bit lacking. No matter how they struggled, they couldn't block the combined attacks of the elites of the four cities. There was no chance of losing this battle, it was only a matter of time. Many of the mountains around Miracle City had been lost and the source energy weapons had been damaged, so they couldn't form an effective defense. The Spider Race came out from all over Miracle City, launching a sneak attack from inside Miracle City. The Wings Race came and went like the wind. With their powerful aerial superiority and flexibility, they were currently disrupting the Miracle City Army's formation, making the Miracle City Army lose sight of one thing, so there were more and more holes in their defenses. Finally, the Green Giant soldiers and Orc Cavalry also charged in. The Green Giant's powerful physique could block light source energy weapons, and the Orc Cavalry's mobility and destructive might were like a sharp knife cutting through the defensive line. Miracle City's heavy weapons had completely lost their defensive advantage, so they could only fight in close range. The Barbarian Berserkers led the new recruits to block the Green Giants and Orc Cavalry, while the Gnomes used bows and various spells to block the Wings Race's attacks from the sky. The warriors of the large tribes couldn't get involved in this kind of battle between city armies. They were responsible for blocking the gaps and blocking the warriors of Cao's army. Although the cannons and other heavy weapons couldn't be used in this chaotic battle, Miracle City still had over 100,000 source energy firearms. This could make up for the lack of battle power to a certain degree, temporarily blocking the attacks of the four cities' army. Cao looked at Miracle City fighting. Let's do it. When Cao, Kino, and several dozen Battle Banner City True Spirit Realm experts charged into Miracle City, a small Berserker team discovered them and immediately raised their storm rifles to shoot. These densely packed source energy bullets were very strong. Even if a True Spirit Realm expert was hit by several storm rifles without any defenses, they would still suffer heavy injuries. Seeking death. Cao waved his hand and the Berserkers seemed to be weightless as they floated into the air. Every one of them had several abilities coiled around them like dragons. Their heads and limbs were pulled in 5 different directions at the same time, pulling them out of their bodies and killing them on the spot. Although the storm rifles weren't weak, it wasn't easy to kill a spirit transformation expert. Cao grabbed the neck of a barbarian berserker through the air and lifted him off the ground. Where is your city lord? Speak. The berserker went berserk and didn't know what fear was. Therefore, he didn't hesitate even if his life was hanging by a thread. He raised the source energy cannon in his left hand and shot it at Cao. The source energy cannon hit Cao's protective spirit energy and it actually made him slightly stagger. Cao was filled with rage as he directly punched the barbarian berserker into pieces. Search. Kino said to the people behind him, even if we have to turn Miracle City upside down, we have to find that person. All of these people possessed shocking strength, and everywhere they passed, they were clean and efficient as if they were crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, causing all those who resisted to be beaten to the point of fleeing like rats. There's news. They are all in the garden in the center of Miracle City. Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping me. Cao's eyes turned red as he laughed. He led several people and immediately began to move. Let's go. Cao began a slaughter on the way. Miracle City was in chaos, with the spider warriors attacking from the inside and the winged race suppressing the sky. There were large amounts of green giants, orcs, and forest tribe warriors that attacked Miracle City from all directions. Kao's group was too small, so they couldn't encircle them. A small group couldn't stop them, so these people easily killed their way into the Miracle Gardens. The Miracle Gardens were filled with Miracle Commerce's sacred herbs. It was simply a giant treasure house. Even if these experts saw this scene, they couldn't help feeling shocked. They never thought Miracle City would actually be this rich. Although there were many resources in the Forest of Chaos, who didn't want to transplant these treasures so they could use them whenever they wanted? Although these heaven and earth treasures wouldn't rot like normal materials, once they were picked, they would quickly lose their vitality. This would cause the medicinal effects to weaken and finally their value would be greatly reduced. Was transplanting something easy? This kind of precious material was very harsh on its growing environment. Transplanting every sacred herb not only required high-level cultivation techniques, but it also required enough fertile soil and a special environment as the foundation. At the very least, it was impossible to find such a large medicinal field in Battle Banner City. These heaven and earth treasures were very eye-catching, but what shocked Kao the most was not them. When Kao and the others looked at the center, they saw a small sapling that was around 3 feet tall. This sapling didn't look special at first glance, but the sapling was covered in a pure green divine light. The entire garden was covered in this aura and power. It looked like it was 3 feet tall, but in fact, it gave off the feeling of a baby. It should have just been born. Every leaf was bright green, like the best gemstones and jade. If the patterns on the leaves were magnified thousands of times, one would see that they were all densely packed innate runes, and every single one of them contained the vitality of heaven and earth. Divine object. A divine object. Although Kao and the others didn't know where this thing came from, they didn't need to use their brains to feel that this little sapling had already surpassed the immortal grade realm. It was definitely a legendary divine object that couldn't be found on the continent, and it wasn't even a normal divine object. The eyes of the several dozen people couldn't move away from it at all. The heaven and earth phenomenon that occurred in Miracle City was also caused by this divine tree. The divine tree stood there. Although the entire garden was filled with treasures, it didn't attract them at all. What was the origin of this divine tree? No matter where it came from, it wasn't important. Perhaps all the things in the garden added together couldn't compare to this divine tree's value. If they could get their hands on it, even if they couldn't use it themselves, as long as they offered it to the Beast King, they wouldn't need to worry about obtaining large benefits. This is bad. There are bad people coming. The flower fairies successfully grew the ancient tree of life. They didn't even have time to be happy before they felt a killing intent and greedy aura. Although they were exhausted, they still quickly protected the tree of life. Perhaps there wouldn't be a second tree of life in this world. They had to protect the tree of life no matter what. Chu Tian, Meng Qingwu, Meng Yingying, and Nangong Yun, although the 4 of them looked a bit tired, they were in an unprecedentedly good state. Because they had absorbed the aura of the tree of life, their cultivations had clearly increased. Chu Tian had reached the peak second awakened soul layer, the Meng sisters had broken through to the second awakened soul layer, and Nangong Yun had reached the peak third awakened soul layer. This was after they sealed their meridians, not absorbing the energy of the tree of life. City Lord Cao saw Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu in the distance. The clothes they were wearing were clearly the city lord's robes, and the expression on his face became even more fanatical. This truly is an unexpected harvest. Meng Yingying clenched her fists and shouted, "Humph, don't think that we're afraid of you. Do you see this tree? It is the ancient tree of life, comparable to an ancient spiritual god. Once it releases its might, you little shrimps will be turned to dust in minutes." Although she was bluffing and had a fierce appearance, Meng Yingying's threat was like a little white rabbit showing its claws to a big bad wolf. So it's the ancient tree of life? The ancient tree of life is not a killing object. City Lord Cao gave a sinister smile, not to mention how much power a newly born ancient tree of life can produce. While they were talking, City Lord Cao's body released a red-hot spirit energy that was like a flood dragon coiling around his body. There was no doubt his 8th true spirit layer cultivation, and when that strong pressure came, it made it hard for people to breathe. Too strong. Even if the people here worked together, it would be hard to block a single attack. When Miracle City was still Green City, there were several spirit transformation experts. For example, the dead Green Religion Bishop, the undead Religion Lich, and the Druid Prophet Yoda. Yoda couldn't return from the Great Zhou dynasty. There was no one in Miracle City who could fight. Chu Tian quickly raised his hand and said, "Wait, perhaps we can talk." "Stall for time?" City Lord Cao said with a cold smile. "This is meaningless. Miracle City is doomed to fall. Even if the Eternal Forest sends reinforcements, they won't make it in time. If you cripple your own cultivation and follow this City Lord, I can guarantee you a lifetime of wealth." Chu Tian shrugged. "You really don't know how to negotiate." "This is not a negotiation." Cao gave a low roar and released all his strength. He didn't like wasting time. He would first cripple these people. But at this time, with a thought from Chu Tian, the 18 divine servants hiding nearby suddenly charged at Cao at the same time. Cao was a bit stunned, but this kind of sneak attack had no value. Kino and the other experts weren't just decorations. Almost in an instant, the divine servants were sent flying like broken puppets. Cao's body was surrounded by a powerful energy and he instantly broke through the sound barrier, charging forward at a speed surpassing the speed of sound. The Meng sisters and Nangong Yun's faces all fell. "This is bad." At this moment, Chu Tian's eyes narrowed. "You really think you can eat me?" Suddenly, dark clouds were released from the void. Large amounts of lightning flashed and jumped, and an ancient and dignified aura descended between the heavens and the earth. Chu Tian did not retreat in front of this strong opponent, rather he took the initiative to attack. Chapter 979. This seemed to be the only way out. Would the Eternal Forest help them? Those old-fashioned elves didn't want to be involved in a fight, not to mention that behind the power dealing with Miracle City was the strongest power in the forest. The Eternal Forest and the elves always protected themselves, so it was almost impossible for them to be involved in this fight. Chu Tian helplessly waved his hand. "No matter what, we have to give it a try, otherwise we can only wait for death." Vivian hesitated for a few seconds before nodding. "All right, we'll give it a try." Meng Qingwu was still a bit in disbelief. "Chu Tian, you really plan on begging those stubborn old men from the Eternal Forest? Do I look like I'm joking? Other than the Eternal Forest, there is no other power that can save us. Can you convince them?" "It doesn't matter if I can convince the elves or not, but they will definitely send their troops." Where did Chu Tian's confidence come from? Was he this certain that the elves would save Miracle City? "I'll leave Miracle City to you." Chu Tian patted Vivian's shoulder. "There's no time to lose, let's go." Vivian left space without another word, and the two of them instantly moved several hundred miles away. Although Miracle City was far from the Eternal Forest, with Vivian's spatial abilities, this distance wasn't anything. When Vivian's strength was about to run out, the two of them appeared outside the Eternal Valley. There was a white stone path covered in fluorescent moss. Vivian pointed at the long path and said, "This is the only entrance to the Eternal Forest." The Eternal Forest's environment was very special. It was a space similar to a secret realm. Other than this white path, there was no other path into the Eternal Forest. Even if they deviated half a foot from the path and walked in the same direction, they would never be able to enter the Eternal Forest. Because the Eternal Forest's spatial structure was very special and there was a very high-level barrier set up, the white path was the only entrance. This made the Eternal Forest a paradise that was easy to defend and hard to attack. The elves lived inside, free and rich, so they didn't fight with the world. Vivian was a bit uncertain in her heart. "Me bringing you here is already breaking the clan's rules. There will definitely be elven experts guarding the Eternal Path, so whether we can enter or not will depend on our luck." "It doesn't matter, let's try." Vivian saw that Chu Tian wasn't slow from beginning to end, as if everything was under his control, so her heart instantly calmed down. There was nothing in this world that Big Brother Chu Tian couldn't handle. Since Big Brother Chu Tian was this confident, then she would go all out. The worst result was being locked up for several decades, so what did this little bit of trouble count for saving Miracle City? "Who are you?" Chu Tian had just walked several dozen feet when he suddenly felt a cold wind blow around him. Several dozen elves came out of nowhere and each of them had a bow drawn. There were two people at the very front pointing their swords at Chu Tian. The Eternal Forest Guards. Vivian quickly stood up and said, "Don't misunderstand. I brought him here." "Your Highness Princess Vivian?" The elf girl in the lead who looked very mature was a bit surprised. "Why did you bring a human to the Eternal Small Path? Don't you know this is a serious violation of the clan's rules? Although you are the Elven King's daughter, the Elven Council has the final say in the Eternal Forest." Vivian quickly explained, "This is Miracle City's City Lord Chu Tian, a City Lord personally appointed by Royal Father. He is helping our Eternal Forest develop and manage the city, so he is considered a member of the Eternal Forest. There is nothing wrong with me bringing him here." This reason wasn't even enough to convince herself. Not to mention convincing the Eternal Forest Guards? What Vivian never thought was that when these elves heard Chu Tian's name, their eyes lit up. "Ah, this is the famous Mr. Chu Tian. Put down your weapons, put down your weapons. This is a misunderstanding." Vivian's eyes popped out. "It can't be." Chu Tian was also very surprised. Didn't the elves want to cut humans into 8 pieces? These elves' attitudes were too good. Was it just because he was handsome? The leading female elf looked at Chu Tian with a gaze of worship. "Our Eternal Forest has many things produced by Miracle Commerce, especially the video disc player and the magnetic sound device, which everyone likes. It's a pity that there is no signal here, so we often secretly go to places with signal to listen to Miracle Commerce's channel." "That's right." Another elf said, "When will you cover this place with the signal? This way we won't have to go through so much trouble." "Haha, easy, easy." Chu Tian gave a few laughs, "But I've met a bit of trouble. Can you big sisters let me in?" The elves were a bit hesitant. "There has never been a human in the Eternal Forest before. We must report this to the Elven King. Please wait a bit." After saying this, the elf flew off. Vivian rarely came to the Eternal Forest. She never would have thought that Miracle Commerce's products would have this many customers among the elves. It was because of these products that the elves' impression of Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce had greatly improved. Perhaps they would really help them. In the end, the elf that reported to Chu Tian did not come back. There were over 100 dark golden armored elven guards holding long blades charging out, quickly surrounding Chu Tian and Vivian. Vivian's face sunk. "What are you doing? Do you know who we are?" These elven guards did not say anything as they escorted the two of them into the Eternal Forest. Although their posture was not very good, Chu Tian was the only human to enter the Eternal Forest in the last 10,000 years. The Eternal Forest was filled with an incomparably strong vitality. The sun's well released a warm and bright light that covered the entire forest. There were over 1 million elves living in the forest, using the trees as houses, without any worries. The beautiful elven songs filled every corner of the forest. The Elven King's palace was majestic, hanging off a cliff covered in waterfalls. It was carved from pure white jade and each detail was filled with an unimaginable sense of art and culture. Chu Tian did not have time to properly appreciate it before he was sent to the Elven Council. Several dozen elven elders had already arrived. The youngest among them was around 40 years old, giving off a warm feeling like jade. It was like every inch of his body was condensed from the essence of the world. "Royal Father." Vivian's arm was locked by the guards and she quickly shouted, "Make these annoying fellows let go." The Elven King shook his head with a bitter smile. "Vivian, what are you doing running here? Don't you know that the Eternal Forest can't be casually entered?" The speaker Augusta coldly stood up. "Vivian entering the Forest of Chaos without permission is already a serious violation of the clan's rules. Now bringing an outsider in is even more unforgivable. You are that human Chu Tian who likes to play tricks? Making the current young people more and more restless, you are simply a sinner that has broken the 10,000-year-old teachings of the elves. I didn't pursue this matter, but you ran to the Eternal Forest. What are you planning? If you don't give a reasonable explanation today, you can forget about leaving." Although he already knew that the elves were inflexible, he never thought they would be inflexible to this point. It seemed like Ulysses was already considered a good person. Chu Tian said in a voice that was neither humble nor arrogant, "I'm here to ask for forgiveness." When these words were said, not only was Vivian stunned, the elven king, Ulysses, and even the speaker were a bit stunned. Chu Tian came to the eternal forest just to ask for forgiveness? Chu Tian then said, "I failed the elven king's trust and couldn't protect the city, so I'm guilty." Augusta looked at the elven king beside him. "City? What city?" The elven king helplessly replied, "He's referring to Green City." "Your Majesty, you actually gave Green City to this human to manage?" Augusta revealed a look of disbelief. "That city doesn't belong to the elves. What qualifications do we have to deal with it? Not to mention that even if it belongs to the elves, the transfer of the city should be decided after the council votes and public opinion. You transferring the city like this is not in accordance with our democratic laws. This is a blasphemy against the elves' etiquette. Our great ancestor Fama once said that democracy is above everything else." Chu Tian suspected that if this old elf kept talking like this, he would be able to talk for 3 days and 3 nights. He quickly gave a cough. "The city is already in danger and this one is incompetent, unable to protect it, so I will return the city to the eternal forest. I hope the Elven Council members can take back the city and save Miracle City's millions of citizens." The Elven King asked with knit brows, "What happened?" Chu Tian truthfully told him everything that happened recently. Right now Battle Banner City, Cloud Heaven City, Emerald City, and Crypt City are working together to attack Miracle City. Only the Eternal Forest's power can turn the tide. I am willing to return the city and ask the Elven King and the Elven Council members to save Miracle City for the sake of the innocent citizens. The Elven King immediately knit his brows. Augusta immediately jumped up and said, "This city was not recognized by the Elven Council, so it doesn't belong to the Eternal Forest at all. How could the elves enter a war for an illegal city? The elves haven't fought in many years. We are a peace-loving race." In order to make his words more convincing, Augusta continued to say, "The facts have proven that it is because of this that no matter how many powers have fought in the forest, the elves have not been affected at all. So we don't need extra cities and lands, especially cities that will cause chaos and slaughter. Seeing that you are saving the citizens, we will exempt you from the crime of charging into the Eternal Forest, but please leave immediately. The Eternal Forest does not welcome humans." The other Elven Council members all nodded. It was like they were afraid Miracle City would break the peace of the Eternal Forest. Vivian gave a bitter smile. Most of the Elven Council members were old-fashioned like this. Who could persuade them to send out their troops? Let's see what methods Chu Tian has. Chu Tian's eyes popped out. The Eternal Forest really won't save Miracle City? We won't save them. The Eternal Forest will really abandon Miracle City? This city has always been illegal. All right. Chu Tian revealed a solemn expression. The Eternal Forest won't accept Miracle City, so I ask the council members to sign a contract with me, letting Miracle City cut off its relationship with the Eternal Forest. From now on, Miracle City will belong to me alone. No matter what happens, the elves can't use any excuse or reason to interfere with Miracle City's internal affairs. What was this human thinking in his head? Chu Tian said with a determined expression, "Since the Eternal Forest isn't willing to recognize and accept Miracle City, in this final moment, why should Miracle City fight under the Eternal Forest's banner? I just want the citizens to fight for themselves in this final moment." Augusta didn't even think about it. It should be like this. You can't go back on your word. The elves are a race of laws, how could we? All right, sign it. Under Chu Tian's supervision, the Elven Council passed the fastest decision in history. They signed a contract with the humans, announcing that Miracle City was illegal to the Eternal Forest and recognizing Miracle City's independence. From now on, Miracle City would be an independent city. Since it's like this, I'll be leaving. Chu Tian looked at Vivian and said, "This trip will be dangerous. I ask the princess to stay in the Eternal Forest." After saying this, Chapter 980. Meng Qingwu knit her brows. Did Chu Tian use his main source spirit again? Although this source spirit could increase Chu Tian's strength, there was a large risk in using this source spirit. Unless it was a last resort, Chu Tian would not easily reveal his strength. Cao's hands reached out. Several dozen energy chains hit Chu Tian's body like beams of light. This attack was strong enough to destroy the protective spirit energy of a normal spirit transformation cultivator. Even if Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun were outside of the attack range, they could still feel the strong destructive power of the attack. Be careful! The two of them wanted to warn him, but they didn't even have the chance to speak. Several dozen attacks fell onto Chu Tian's body. Cao did not want to kill Chu Tian, so he did not directly attack him. When the several dozen energy chains were about to hit Chu Tian's body, they all exploded, turning into millions of thin threads. Each thread was like a steel needle stabbing at different acupuncture points and meridians on Chu Tian's body. You want to destroy my meridians? Chu Tian gave a cold laugh and his eyes turned black. It was not a normal black, but a deep black, just like a black hole. When the thin threads of energy entered his body, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no sound at all. Cao slightly knit his brows and released another energy chain. This time it directly hit Chu Tian's body. Although a part of the energy was swallowed, Cao's strength was too strong and most of it hit Chu Tian's body. The result was that it was bounced off by the starlight around Chu Tian's body. Chu Tian did not even stop as he charged in front of him. The long sword turned into a black streak as it slashed out. Several hundred energy chains appeared around Cao's body, easily bouncing off the sword filled with destructive power. His palms slammed into Chu Tian's chest at the same time. The starlight protecting Chu Tian's body was finally shattered and he was instantly sent flying several dozen feet away. He was sent flying by Cao's energy chains in midair before finally falling to the ground, creating a large hole in the ground. Chu Tian was only in the peak second true spirit layer and Cao was an expert in the 8th true spirit layer. The two of them were separated by 3 stages, a full 6 layers of cultivation. This was not a gap that could be measured by any cultivation technique or skill. What made people dumbfounded was that Chu Tian was forced back after exchanging several moves with Cao. Chu Tian flipped over and jumped up. At least 7 to 8 of his ribs were broken and his internal organs were not small injuries. His eyes turned green and an overflowing vitality flowed through his body, quickly healing his injuries. This source spirit is... Cao was in a bit of disbelief. Chu Tian had at least 8-9 different attributes and each one was very strong. What he was using right now was life energy. Chu Tian's ability resonated with the ancient tree of life and the surrounding life energy was drawn in, gathering at an incredible speed. It allowed Chu Tian to miraculously recover in the blink of an eye, not leaving a single mark behind. Chu Tian relied on the innate life energy of his main source spirit and the life energy of the ancient tree of life. As long as he had a single breath, he could quickly recover. You really do have some unexpected methods. City Lord Cao was not a normal person. He suppressed the shock in his heart and released his strength, turning into hundreds of intertwining energy chains. It's a pity, I only want an obedient dog and not a dog that can turn into a hungry wolf at any moment. Fast. Too fast. City Lord Cao gathered the energy chains and wrapped them around his right arm. Then he broke through the sound barrier again and turned into several shadows that surpassed the speed of sound as they charged forward. The mind's lamp's divine sense was released. Chu Tian's eyes unknowingly turned golden. His divine sense was not weak and after being strengthened by his source spirit, it became several times stronger. His divine sense turned into countless spiritual thorns. Spiritual attacks ignored distance. Therefore this kind of attack could be instantly released. As soon as City Lord Cao was prepared to attack, he felt several dozen thorns stabbing into his brain, causing intense pain. His speed also slowed down. At this time, Chu Tian's golden eyes released another intense glow, endless purgatory. The sky and earth collapsed and he fell into a bottomless abyss. His spiritual energy covered all of his senses, finally creating a dark and deathly underwater world. Cao felt like he was being dragged into several 100,000 meters of water. An unbelievable pressure came from all directions. He couldn't breathe and couldn't move. City Lord Cow felt a suffocating pressure. At this time, countless thumb-sized little fish appeared around him. These fellows were like the fiercest piranhas smelling food, wildly charging at City Lord Cow. They bit his blood, ate his flesh, and drank his marrow. Scram! City Lord Cow loudly shouted. An air bubble appeared at the bottom of the water. The terrifying energy turned the wild, bloodthirsty little fish to ashes. But it was no use. City Lord Cow felt the pressure around him increase and more bloodthirsty piranhas appeared in the darkness. City Lord Cow shattered it once again. After doing this 3 or 4 times, he became extremely tired and could no longer resist. Countless bloodthirsty piranhas charged forward. Cow's flesh was bitten to pieces and some fish directly entered his stomach, chewing on his organs. Even his bones were bitten to pieces and his marrow was sucked dry. This kind of pain surpassed any torture in the world. Finally, City Lord Cow's body was completely bitten. City Lord Cow's consciousness did not disappear. After enduring the immense pain, he suddenly regained consciousness. But his body mysteriously split into 2 and he was also pressed down on the bottom of the sea, unable to move. The suffocating pressure was twice as much as before and countless bloodthirsty little fish appeared around the 2 bodies. Spiritual attack. Spiritual attack. City Lord Cow's will was very clear. He knew that he had fallen into a spiritual illusion. This kind of attack would not cause any harm to the body, but it could directly attack the mind. It was sinister and terrifying, making people tremble and unable to resist. Everything he saw and felt was a fake illusion, but he could not escape it. This pain and torture was fake, but it could destroy a person's mind and will. However, just as the countless bloodthirsty fish were about to charge at him again, the heavy pressure in the surroundings instantly disappeared, and the 2 figures quickly merged into one. The ferocious fish in the surroundings all turned into shadows and disappeared. Cow suddenly returned to the real world. Chu Tian was knocked back several meters by a bolt of lightning, destroying quite a few precious herbs in the process. After Cow recovered, he prepared an attack in his hand, sending Chu Tian flying another 100 meters. Over 100 precious herbs were destroyed in the process. This lightning attack was sent out by Kino. The moment Cow was hit by the spiritual attack, he decisively attacked Chu Tian. Kino was also a spirit transformation realm expert, with a cultivation in the 7th true spirit layer. This was enough to penetrate the starlight immortal body to injure Chu Tian. It was too much of a pity. Endless Purgatory was an incomparably powerful spiritual attack because time flowed faster in the spiritual world than in the material world. Even if a normal expert was hit for an instant, Chu Tian would be able to kill them thousands of times in the illusion, completely shattering their minds and turning them into a madman or vegetable. When he was being chased by the Warhound's Kingdom's Malum on the prairies, Chu Tian had used this move. Although the difference in strength was too large, it still made Malum lose his battle strength. The current situation was even more complicated than before. The difference in cultivation between Chu Tian and Cow had already surpassed the difference between him and Malum. Not to mention that Cow's divine sense was not weak, so it was already very difficult for Chu Tian to hit him. Therefore, he couldn't create a large difference in time, causing his attack to be interrupted before it even started. While Chu Tian was flying back, the surrounding life energy wildly surged in, quickly healing his injuries. He flew into the air and steadily fell down, as if he had never been attacked at all. This truly is incredible spiritual energy. City Lord Cow praised, but his eyes were filled with rage. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Tian still had a use for him, he would have already killed him. What other moves do you have? Chu Tian's injuries could be healed with the ancient tree of life, but his divine sense couldn't be restored. Chu Tian felt a wave of dizziness. It seemed like he really couldn't do it. If it was just Cow alone, Chu Tian could deal with him with his source spirit, but the problem was that other than Cow, there were several dozen experts here. Big brother Chu Tian, should we help you? Lulu and the flower fairies surrounded him as they sent out essence energy. This essence energy was more effective than any elixir, quickly restoring Chu Tian's consumed spirit energy and divine sense. The flower fairies were truly versatile helpers. Cao had already lost his patience. Capture him alive and kill the rest. The Meng sisters and Nangong Yun's hearts turned cold. They had transport scrolls with Chu Tian, and if they couldn't hold on, they could hide in the Great Summer Country or the Great Zhou Country. But what about these flower fairies? The flower fairies did not have any battle strength. They would definitely be killed by Cao. Move! Cao's aura erupted once again. Meng Qingwu decisively said, Yingying, quickly take Lulu and the others and leave this place. Meng Yingying did not even have time to move before Cao, Kino, and the others charged over. Chu Tian quickly controlled the recovered 18 divine servants and quickly surrounded them. Overestimating yourself. The 18 divine servants were sent flying like broken dolls again. Chu Tian first blocked Cao's attack, but he was hit by Kino's lightning bolt. With 4-5 experts attacking him, he was instantly heavily injured. Don't let him recover, waste him. Cao gathered his strength in his right arm and punched at Chu Tian's dantian. If this attack hit Chu Tian, it would most likely scatter most of Chu Tian's cultivation. This is bad. This was a very dangerous moment. A green vine came out of the ground, and it was like a green python that was as thick as an arm. It quickly and anxiously wrapped around Cao's arm. Cao's cultivation was very profound. Not to mention a trivial little vine, even if it was 10 chains made of refined steel, they wouldn't be able to bind him. But now it was just a small vine that could stop Cao's attack without any effort. Chu Tian used his spatial energy and jumped 100 meters away, returning to the young miss and Yingying's side. Nangong Yun quickly asked, Boss, are you all right? Relax, I'm very good. Countless strands of life energy entered Chu Tian's body and all his injuries were instantly healed. When his source spirit slowly came back, no need to worry, Miracle City has already been defended. What did you say? Cao broke the vine with a palm and looked up with a serious expression. What expert is this? You actually ruined this city lord's matter. Chapter 981. Chu Tian spent so much effort running to the Eternal Forest just to sever his relationship with the elves? This was too strange. Could Miracle City still be saved? Vivian took out the scroll and tried to activate it, but Augusta flicked his finger and the scroll flew out of her hand. What are you doing? Vivian was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Return the scroll to me. Miracle City already has no relationship with the Eternal Forest. What is the elven princess doing with the humans? Augusta grabbed the scroll and said with a glare, not to mention that Miracle City is very dangerous right now. For the princess' safety, please separate yourself from Chu Tian and these humans. I'll cut your head. Vivian's palm cut open space, wanting to take the scroll back. In the end, a faint golden light appeared around Augusta's palm and blocked Vivian's power. How could the elves have such an uneducated, rebellious princess? Augusta's face sunk. Your Majesty is too lacking in discipline. Vivian, you can't be rude to the council chief. The elven king was a bit embarrassed. He couldn't do anything to this old elf. You don't need to care about this matter for now. Since you're back, you should stay in the Eternal Forest for a while. Royal Father, even you treat me like this. I have to go back. Miracle City needs me right now. Pay attention to your words. You are an elf and you've broken enough of the clan's rules. If you're punished one by one, you'll have to face the wall for over 100 years. Augusta said, the Elven Council can't let you continue acting willfully. From today onwards, you must learn the Elven race's 10 great laws and 96 etiquettes. When your actions conform to the rules of the Elven race, the Elven Council will let you regain your freedom. Even if I die in Miracle City, I won't learn those broken things. This isn't up to you. Vivian wanted to use her strength to escape, but Augusta pointed at Vivian. The difference in strength between them was too big, so Vivian's source spirit was directly sealed and she couldn't use any strength at all. Bring her away. Let me go, Royal Father. Several elven guards escorted Vivian away. Augusta turned to look at the Elven King. I ask your Majesty for forgiveness, thinking of the princess' future. She is still young and has a lot of potential, so this rebellious nature needs to be polished. As the elven race's youngest princess, she should be a role model for the other young elves. What else could the Elven King say? Although he was the Elven King in name, he had been the Elven King for less than 100 years. Whether it was influence or prestige, how could it compare to this old fellow who had controlled the Elven Council for 500 years? Of the several dozen seats in the Elven Council, only 5-6 were on the Elven King's side. The rest were all from the conservative and traditional factions led by Augusta. They had followed the elven race's etiquettes for tens of thousands of years as the highest standard. Their stubborn thoughts were not easy to break. The Elven King looked at the scroll in Augusta's hand. This scroll seems to have a long-distance teleportation ability. This is an unheard of technology. Has this human called Chu Tian already grasped this spatial technology? I'm afraid the humans have already developed by leaps and bounds. Humph, our ancestors told us that benefits will blind our eyes and this kind of development will only bring destruction. Augusta said with a face of disdain, only by returning to nature and standing aloof from worldly affairs can we become one with the world and exist in this world. This has been the way the elves have lived for tens of thousands of years. Humans have used their intelligence, abused their strength, and wantonly developed, finally becoming the continent's public enemy. They are not far from destruction. The other people in the Elven Council all nodded. The chairman had said too much. The elves were strong enough to protect themselves. Too much power would make people lose themselves, giving rise to slaughter and evil. Vivian was sealed like this and locked in the golden copper tree. The Elven Council began to force her to study the Elven Code and all kinds of etiquette books. Those several hundred pages of books made her head feel like it was going to explode. She bit her pen while angrily complaining, "Big Brother Chu Tian, you really are a bad person, leaving me here alone." A voice came from outside at this time. "Your Majesty, why are you here?" "I'm here to see Vivian." "You can all leave first, nothing will happen." "Understood." The Elven King walked into the treehouse and saw that Vivian was still angry. He helplessly smiled and said, "Are you angry that I didn't help you, or are you angry that Chu Tian left you behind?" I'm angry, you two are making me explode with anger." Vivian almost jumped up when she said this. One was her father who loved her the most, and the other was her big brother Chu Tian who she worshipped the most, but these two people treated her like this. Vivian felt like she had been abandoned, so how could she not be angry? "Silly girl, you've been with Chu Tian for several months, can't you see what kind of person he is?" Vivian was stunned. "What did you say?" "Although I don't know what he wants to do, he must have a reason for doing this." The Elven King looked at Vivian and said, "As for what it is, I think we'll find out soon." "Really?" Vivian was filled with doubt. However, when she thought about Chu Tian's character and actions, she felt that this matter was very strange. Could it be that Chu Tian deliberately broke off with the Eternal Forest and deliberately threw her in the Eternal Forest? What was his goal? Could Miracle City hold on? Could it be that Big Brother Chu Tian knew he couldn't save Miracle City, so he sent her back to not implicate me? Vivian's heart suddenly tightened when she thought of this. At this time, Miracle City was in a mess because the news of the 4 cities' army gathering had arrived. An army of several 100,000 marched towards Miracle City. Flags flew in the air, covering the sky and giving off an aura that could swallow 10,000 miles. "Flatten Miracle City! Flatten Miracle City! Flatten Miracle City!" The sky above this ancient forest reverberated with shouts filled with monstrous killing intent. The army spread out over 10 kilometers and the Wings Race army covered the sky. There were some Wings Race experts that could fly tens of thousands of meters in the air. Once the airships attacked, these Wings Race people would notice them. The green giant moved like a small mountain, just like a green wave crushing the forest. Wherever he went, it was like he was being bulldozed by a bulldozer, turning the trees into a mess. Over 100,000 orcs riding war wolves and giant leopards moved quickly, surrounding the left and right wings of the green giant. If they came into contact with the enemy, the orc cavalry would be able to charge at them in a short period of time. The spider race was in charge of the rear and underground. so Miracle City had no chance to attack. This kind of scene was rarely seen in the Forest of Chaos. All the locals fell at the sight of this and began to list Miracle City's crimes, expressing their irreconcilable hatred with Miracle City. They swore to join the Four Cities army to fight Miracle City, as if Miracle City was an irreconcilable enemy that killed their families. Wherever the Four Cities army went, there were more and more people responding. Whether it was the tribes or the bandits, they didn't want to miss this chance. Miracle City was finished. There was no suspense in the result of this battle. This was a large forest city that had been in operation for several hundred years. The wealth and resources they had accumulated was enough to make people drool, so who wouldn't want to share? The commander of this city extermination battle was personally appointed by Battle Banner City's City Lord Cow. Cow personally leading the charge was enough to show how important Miracle City was. No wealth, no land, no resources, no weapons. Battle Banner City had to obtain Miracle City's technology. Send down the order. First, send out 50,000 Wings Race troops to attack the mountains around Miracle City, destroying Miracle City's defenses and subduing the tribes that submitted to Miracle City. They will occupy a few strongholds for us, and the spider race will build a temporary camp. Yes, Sir City Lord. The messenger quickly sent down the order. A large half of the Wings Race troops left the main army and covered the sky like a swarm of locusts, quickly moving towards the mountain range around Miracle City. Fireballs, wind blades, rocks. All kinds of attacks fell down like a wild storm. They did not encounter any decent challenges, and the Winged Race troops easily swept through the few defensive facilities. Ha ha! Miracle City is too weak. They didn't even resist at all. It didn't take much effort for the Four Cities army to attack Miracle City's perimeter because all the tribes in the mountains around Miracle City seemed to have evaporated. All the tribes were emptied of people. This was a bit strange. Could they have all escaped? Impossible, they all escaped. Why didn't they see them on the way? Most of these tribes had some savings, so even the smallest mosquito was meat. If they ran into them, they wouldn't let them off. But they didn't see any of these tribes and they didn't find anything valuable in searching their tribes. Did they all take refuge in Miracle City? Strange, with such a large army pressing down on them. Not a single one of the outer powers surrendered? But what did it matter? They were going to be destroyed anyway. Over 100,000 spider race soldiers dug through the mountain rocks and created a temporary camp in less than half a day. Cow led the main army to enter and various kinds of restrictions and barriers were set up. This army of close to 1 million soldiers faced Miracle City. The Four Cities army didn't even have a stable footing. There are unknown objects flying over. These must be Miracle City's strange weapons. Cow gave a cold laugh. Have the Wings Race shoot them down. Miracle City shot out several hundred missiles. The Battle Banner City people knew the might of the source energy weapons. If these things fell into the camp, they would instantly cause large amounts of damage. Therefore, the Wings Race immediately moved out. This was a race that specialized in speed and the true spirit experts could easily surpass the speed of sound. Miracle Commerce's missile weapons had just been developed, so there weren't many of them. They were all cut down by the wind blades in the air, and not a single one hit their target. Miracle City has already exhausted all their tricks. Cow was completely assured seeing this. The Four Cities army was a three-dimensional army. The Wings Race was enough to form a strong defense line, making all of Miracle City's weapons lose their effect. Miracle City was completely sealed off, without any supplies or reinforcements. Although their weapons were very strong, in this kind of situation, how long could they last? Send down the order. Chapter 982. City Lord Cow's cultivation and strength were enough to be ranked among the top experts in the Forest of Chaos. Otherwise, how could he become a city lord? With this kind of strength, he was attacked by the opponent without him noticing at all. From when the other side made their move to when the attack landed, Cow did not notice it at all. In other words, if the other side wanted to take his life, it was very likely they would have succeeded. The other side did not do this. So why was that? He either had no motive to kill Cow or he felt that killing Cow was as easy as turning his hand. So, this was not a good time for him and he did not need to waste any effort to grasp it. When everyone looked over, a figure had appeared in the garden at an unknown time. This was a middle-aged elf who looked gentle and refined. His face was impeccably handsome even among the elves. There was not the slightest energy fluctuation coming from his body. He looked just like an ordinary person. He was wearing a green robe and had a simple crown on his head. There was a long scepter in his right hand and a silver-white cloak fluttered in the wind behind him. A legendary name appeared in the minds of Chu Tian and the others. The Elven King Lancelot. There were few people in the Eternal Forest that had seen the Elven King's true appearance, so of course Chu Tian and the others had never seen him before. However, from Vivian's description of her father, they could determine that this person was Lancelot. The power the Elven King used just now came from the scepter in his hand. This scepter was called the Forest Scepter, and it was said that it was made from a branch of the ancient Tree of Life. It had an unfathomable might, and there was not a second person in the Forest of Chaos qualified to use this weapon. The first feeling the Elven King gave people was not that of a king, but rather that of a well-read scholar or a charming wandering poet. City Lord Cao still could not determine the other side's identity, but like a wild beast that smelled danger, the veins on his forehead tightened, making his face look fierce. His pupils slightly shrank, revealing not killing intent, but rather nervousness. It was like a hunter who was fully focused on attacking suddenly had a piece of red-hot charcoal stuffed in his crotch, but he couldn't cry out. The Elven King was like a smooth and calm jade sculpture. His scepter, which was simple and unadorned, was inserted into the ground. Although it did not emit any energy waves, everyone could clearly feel that the entire garden had become the domain of this expert. His power could erupt from anywhere at any time. "Retreat, I won't kill you." The Elf King opened his mouth and spoke. There was no sense of threat. Instead, it was more like a sincere plea or consolation to an old friend. City Lord Cao's eyes were focused on Chu Tian, but his divine sense and mind were looking at the Elven King. Chu Tian's group had already become bystanders. The atmosphere suddenly froze in that instant. It was like time could not continue to flow in the garden. There was only one person who recognized the Elven King's identity, and that was Kino behind Cao. Kino was not a person from Battle Banner City and had wandered the Forest of Chaos in his early years. He had interacted with the elves before, so he had some understanding of the Elven King and recognized the legendary life scepter. Kino was covered in a cold sweat, not even daring to take a deep breath. Even the slightest extra movement would bring disaster to himself. The Elven King said he was willing to let them go, and these people were relieved of a heavy burden. Although they didn't know why the Elven King would appear here. Since the Elven King had appeared, there was no meaning in fighting here. Just as Kino was thinking about how to tell Cao and make Cao retreat, a voice suddenly rang out. Who would have thought that at this time, something Kino never thought would happen? Roar! Cao broke through the sound barrier and turned into several figures, charging at Chu Tian's group at the same time. They didn't know who this elf was, but it was most likely related to the Eternal Forest and was most likely here for the Divine Tree. There was no way to obtain the Divine Tree. But at the very least, he had to capture these people. Otherwise, what meaning was there in this battle? How could Cao be willing? When the Elven King saw this, he gently stabbed the forest scepter into the ground a few inches and a vast power spread through the ground. Countless green vines drilled out, easily lifting Cao, who was flying at supersonic speed, into the air. Several dozen vines shot out. Like piercing through a piece of paper, they instantly pierced through Cao's body. Cao revealed a look of disbelief. "You? If you kill me, His Majesty the Beast King will not let you off." The Elven King gave a soft sigh. Lancelot will take responsibility for this." Lancelot. When Cao heard this name, his mind turned blank and his eyes popped out like a dead fish. He finally knew why he was completely defeated. So it was the Elven King? Dying in his hands, it wasn't an injustice. With a tearing sound, the Orc City Lord was torn to pieces. Even someone as strong as Cao, in front of the Elven King, he was no different from a little bug. He couldn't even take a single blow. We didn't know it was His Majesty the Elven King. Kino's head was covered in sweat as he quickly bowed. We'll leave now, we'll retreat now. The Elven King gave a faint nod. It was like they had been granted amnesty as they immediately ran away without even thinking about it. Nangong Yun called out in a dissatisfied voice, "Could it be we're letting them go like this?" Although the other side was the Elven King, Nangong Yun was very familiar with Vivian, so she didn't feel any pressure when she saw her father. These fellows made a mess of Miracle City. Wasn't it too easy to let them go like this? Of course. This was already the best result for Miracle City. Although the Elven King was strong, it was impossible for him to fight against 1,000,000 people by himself. Every minute this battle lasted, Miracle City would suffer more damage. The Elven King killing Cao was just a deterrent. After all, with Cao's death, the highest leader of the 4 cities' army was gone. If Kino brought the news back, these people would definitely choose to retreat. The Elven King's prestige was really useful. Kino brought the news of Cao's death and ordered the Battle Banner City army to retreat. The various armies all knew of the Elven King's arrival and immediately rushed to join the retreat. The Elven King was one of the strongest people in the Forest of Chaos. His appearance meant that the Eternal Forest was interfering. Who knew how many experts came from the Eternal Forest, and for them to reach the level of the Eternal Forest, this kind of battle was not something they could endure. "Your Majesty Lancelot, I never thought that you would personally come." The Flower Fairies happily surrounded him. The Flower Fairies had a good relationship with the elves, so Lulu and the others had the chance to see the Elven King in their endless lives. The Elven King Lancelot walked in front of the Tree of Life and looked at the 3-foot-tall divine tree with a shocked gaze. "This is the ancient Tree of Life? I never thought that it would actually succeed." "Your Majesty, this is all Chu Tian's credit." The Flower Fairy Lulu said, "If it wasn't for Chu Tian's method of activating the seed, we wouldn't have been able to make it sprout no matter how much effort we put in." The Elven King looked over Chu Tian's group. Meng Qingwu and Meng Yingying were a bit nervous. The Elven King was the ruler of the Eternal Forest, the strongest existence among the elves and one of the most influential experts in the Forest of Chaos. Even Meng Qingwu found it hard to maintain a calm attitude when facing this kind of person. "What you did this time was too risky. If I came a bit later, even if you could escape, the Tree of Life would have suffered a mishap." The Elven King looked back at the ancient Tree of Life. "This tree's accident has already attracted the attention of many people, so I suggest moving it to the Eternal Forest. This way, it will be easier for the Eternal Forest to irrigate it with the sun's well water, and it will also be protected by the Eternal Forest's barrier." Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders and said, "Your Majesty the Elven King might not know, but once the Tree of Life sprout, its roots will connect to the spirit vein in the surrounding 1,000 miles, becoming one with the earth. Moving it in this kind of situation would be very risky." "That's right, Your Majesty the Elven King." Lulu and the others immediately came out to testify. Once the ancient Tree of Life is planted, it can't be moved easily. Not to mention that the Tree of Life seed has been sleeping for countless years. Although it has been awakened with great difficulty, it is still in a very weak state. If it is dug out now, it will be killed. If it was just Chu Tian's side of the story, the Elven King would be skeptical. This fellow was very sly. Who knew if he was deceiving them? But now that even the Flower Fairies said this, he had no choice but to believe it. The Flower Fairies were the best gardeners on the continent, and the Flower Fairies were pure and kind. It was impossible for them to deceive the Elven King. The Elven King knit his brows. "This is troublesome. No matter what, many thanks to the Elven King for saving us." Chu Tian cupped his hands to the Elven King. "Only Miracle City is in a mess right now, and we need to clean up the mess, so this one can't receive you." After saying this, Chu Tian did not wait for the Elven King to say anything before leaving with his eyes. Miracle City had experienced the largest calamity since it was built, and it was impossible to estimate the current losses. If one were to say that the damage within the city was still beyond the acceptable range, the situation on the outside was not too optimistic. The native tribes had suffered heavy losses, and many factories had also been damaged. Meng Qingwu did a simple calculation. This battle had caused damage, casualties, losses, and looted resources for Miracle City. These direct losses reached around 100,000 source stones. Other than the direct damage and looted resources, they also had to comfort the injured citizens, provide compensation to the tribes that suffered heavy losses, and also reward the soldiers that killed the enemy. This would greatly increase the already tight financial burden. It's fine if it was just like this. Dolores had a depressed look. Miracle Bank will reduce the interest of the tribes by half and also take care of the repairs. We won't earn anything from this loan and will instead suffer a large loss. Anyone would be depressed if this matter was placed on them. Miracle Bank's business model was stable profit, but that was under normal circumstances. If there was a natural disaster, there was a possibility of losing money. Don't worry, there will be many difficulties in the future, but it will pass. Chu Tian maintained an optimistic attitude. After this battle, Miracle City's reputation will rise and our future development in the Forest of Chaos will be even smoother. Is that so? I hope it's like this. Miracle City really couldn't take this anymore. Meng Qingwu tightly knit her brows. She thought that Chu Tian was too optimistic. The 4 cities had been defeated by Miracle City. This matter would indeed make Miracle City famous in the center of the Forest of Chaos, but what about further places? Miracle City had already attracted the attention of a large power like the Eternal Forest. Could their future development be peaceful? Chapter 983. This is bad. A Miracle City bear man ran in front of Nangong Yun while pissing his pants. Big sister Nangong Yun. The enemy has completely occupied the outer perimeter. I can see it, this old lady isn't blind. Nangong Yun stood on a tall mountain and she could see the enemy's main camp in the distance. It was simply like a boundless ocean. Damn, they've really spent a lot to attack Miracle City. Miracle City's outer ring of mountains was now occupied by the 4 cities' allied army. Miracle City was defending the inner mountain range. They had no choice but to give up the outer perimeter because Miracle City had to shrink their defensive circle. That way, they could gather a stronger force. Everyone was filled with fear. What should we do now? Nangong Yun's brows jumped up. What do you think we can do? Fiercely beat them for me. The 4 cities' armies were unstoppable, but that didn't mean Miracle City was a fish on the chopping block. Although Miracle City didn't have a barrier that covered the entire city, there were several hundred green protectors that could support a small barrier. Meng Qingwu urgently took out all the source energy weapons in Miracle Commerce's storage and even the weapons that were sold to the Great Summer Country's army to Miracle City. There were over 500 source energy cannons, over 30 strengthened source energy cannons, and tens of thousands of other heavy firearms. Miracle Commerce had used all their resources. The tribes around Miracle City also showed a high degree of loyalty. Not a single tribe betrayed them. These over 2 million locals brought their families to Miracle City. The stronger young men joined the battle, contributing quite a bit to Miracle City's defenses. Dongfang Haoren was urgently called back, and even Arnold and the others were called back. Even Meng Yingying and Dolores had to join the battle. Many experts from the Great Summer Country were sent over to help. Miracle City gathered all the battle strength they could gather together. This was definitely a life and death battle for Miracle City. Punk, punk. 2 large explosions came from the west side of the mountain range. Nangong Yun received Zero's voice on her cell phone. Pay attention, there are enemies trying to sneak attack Miracle City. Because they have entered our minefield, they have been stopped. Nangong Yun took out a map of the enemy. This map was a piece of leather-coated material. The second Miracle Smart Brain controlled the undead spiritual radar to scan the Miracle Mountain range once per second. After processing the data, it was sent to the central Smart Brain 0 and 0 sent the data to the map in the hands of the frontline commanders. There were 2 frontline commanders. Nangong Yun was in charge of the southern line and Dongfang Haoren was in charge of the northern line. Each line was divided into several areas and each area had troops. Dolores was in charge of the quick response troops, Meng Yingying was in charge of the airships and the air force, and Meng Qingwu was in charge of the central command. Humph, idiot, simply seeking death. Nangong Yun could clearly see several groups trying to sneak attack. Miracle City had already expected the Spider Race warriors to use this method, so they had placed all the source energy mines around Miracle City. These Spider Race warriors were close to the mines, so it would be strange if they weren't blown to pieces. Zero's voice sounded out again. Pay attention, the enemy is approaching in large numbers. They are mainly attacking from the southwest. I have already sent out intercepting missiles. I ask all commanders to prepare for battle. Was it finally coming? Because the battlefield was too big, the naked eye couldn't see the entire situation. Nangong Yun took a few pictures of the enemy's situation map, and the enemy's situation map immediately changed from the life signal distribution map to the Heaven's Eye airship's high-altitude reconnaissance map. Nangong Yun could clearly see a large group of winged clan troops rushing towards her position. These fellows were very sly. They were moving close to the mountains, so the naked eye couldn't see them. There was no doubt they were trying to catch Miracle City off guard. Nangong Yun revealed a cold smile. 9 o'clock direction, source energy cannons, fire. The 80 source energy cannons aimed at the gap between the two mountain peaks. Although nothing appeared, they didn't care about this and just followed the order. The cannons instantly fired. When the source energy cannons fired, large amounts of dark clouds charged out from the back of the mountain. The source energy cannons landed on them and caught the winged race off guard. A large amount of them were instantly killed, with at least several hundred casualties. Nangong Yun broke out in laughter. These damn birdmen aren't staying in their bird nests, they actually followed the green frogs to seek death. Let them see Miracle City's might. Cannons, firearms, crossbows, and javelins. Miracle City's advanced source energy weapons and the locals' traditional crossbows and javelins were used together. All kinds of lights were released in the sky, being incomparably dazzling and releasing terrifying explosions. The winged race's nimble figures kept moving back and forth in the sky. After all, they were the elites of a forest city, and each winged race soldier was an expert picked out of 100. They moved too fast and most of Miracle City's attacks missed. Various kinds of wind blades and flames kept flying at Miracle City's defenders. The green protectors opened their arms and created barriers one after another, blocking the winged race's attacks. At this time, a large group of green giants were like gorillas, aggressively climbing over the mountains. They were all like human-shaped King Kong, charging forward against the storm rifles with just their flesh and blood bodies. The orc knights on the ground turned into countless black streams that charged through the canyon. The battle between the two sides instantly entered a white-hot stage. Cao looked from afar and couldn't help being shocked. He was very happy that he didn't attack Miracle City alone. Otherwise, with Battle Banner City's strength, even if they sent out all their troops, they still wouldn't be able to take Miracle City. Even if they took Miracle City, Battle Banner City's troops would all be killed and the gains would not make up for the losses. It was just like what Kino said. In the end, it was all for the other powers. Miracle City's performance was just too unexpected. Miracle City did not have a large city protecting barrier. These mountain ranges to Miracle City, not only did they not become a barrier, they even hindered their counterattack to a certain degree. Miracle City was a typical forest city. It was just too big, so this kind of battle could not be compared to normal battles. The defending side needed to defend a large area that was full of holes. On the other hand, the attackers were able to take advantage of any gap and attack the opponent's weak spots from anywhere. Miracle City was not just at a disadvantage from the start of the battle. In terms of military strength, Miracle City's army was mainly made up of personally trained berserkers, tens of thousands of new recruits, the gnome army of Green City, and finally the local army. This kind of mixed-together army was not only not coordinated, it was not strong at all. The Four Cities army was different. This army's main force was made up of the elites of the various cities. It was not something Miracle City could compare to. Miracle City, who didn't have the right time, location, and manpower, could actually block the wild attacks of the Allied army. The source energy weapons mended the large gap in strength. The city's dynamic intelligence system mended the gaps in the city's defenses. It was because of this that Miracle City could block the Four Cities army, at least blocking the first attack. Cao had been attacking for almost an hour, But he still couldn't break through Miracle City's defenses. The four cities' army was already in chaos, and if they kept fighting like this, they would lose more than they gained, so they immediately retreated. This was truly a bloody battle. The Wings race lost 20,000 soldiers, the Green Giants lost 15,000 soldiers, the Spider People lost 30,000 soldiers, and the Orc Cavalry lost 25,000 soldiers. A total of 90,000 people died. Cow's face instantly turned livid. Although Miracle City's losses weren't small, this kind of losses far surpassed their expectations. The Wings race leader complained to Cow, "City Lord Cow, Miracle City's strength is much stronger than we imagined. Our Wings race lost over 20,000 soldiers, but we couldn't even break through the enemy's defenses. I dare bet that Miracle City's losses aren't as many as ours. Are you doubting this City Lord's abilities?" Cow gave a cold snort. Miracle City clearly has some unknown probing ability. During the battle, I sent out at least 10 sneak attacks, but no matter which mountain they sneaked into, they were all intercepted by Miracle City. As for the power of their weapons, you should have experienced it yourself. Just tell me what we should do. The Green Giant leader violently cut him off. Our losses are this heavy, the blood of our clansmen can't be spilled for nothing. Miracle City must be taken down. No need to rush. City Lord Cow sat in his seat and said with a confident expression, "Today's attack was not smooth, but Miracle City's losses are not small. Their weapons are quite worn out and they are too reliant on these weapons. We just need to recruit large amounts of Forest Tribe warriors and gather them into an army of 1,000,000. They will attack from many directions and attract their firepower at the same time, greatly reducing the pressure on us. We will definitely be able to break through Miracle City in one fell swoop." Everyone nodded. It was reasonable they would do it like this. At the end of today's battle, although the four cities' army was in chaos, Miracle City's firepower was clearly weaker. To Miracle City, it was very strenuous to block this kind of fierce attack, and it consumed a large amount of their battle strength. When Nangong Yun returned to the City Lord's castle, her face was covered in burn marks and her clothes were in tatters. On the battlefield today, the area she was in charge of had been heavily attacked. Nangong Yun was also a madman. Although the other side had experts like Clouds, she still charged forward without a care for her own safety. If she didn't have the Starlight Immortal Body, how could she have the Great Nirvana Soul? Without the Starlight Immortal Body, even 10 lives wouldn't be enough. Dongfang Haoren and the others also came back. They were all heavily injured and the situation was not good. Everyone reported the situation. Although the defensive line was defended, they had paid a large price. Dolores said with knit brows, "There are several minefields that have almost no source energy mines left. If we fight again, I'm afraid we won't be able to resist the Spider Army." If they couldn't resist the Spider Army, the consequences would be very serious. These fellows might just appear in the center of Miracle City. At the critical moment of the battle today, I used several Heaven's Punishment airships to reverse the situation. In the end, when we dropped the bombs halfway, 5-6 birdmen found the airships. Meng Yingying indignantly said, "Those birdmen are at least at the Heaven Spirit realm." They were too fast, the airships couldn't escape and the Heaven's Punishment were all destroyed. There's also me. Nangong Yun slammed her fist on the table. 60% of the cannons on this side were destroyed by them. I'm afraid we won't have enough firepower if we fight again. Big Sister Qingwu, do we still have any cannons in storage? Give me another 100 to replenish. No more. Meng Qingwu also felt like her head was about to explode. She shook her head with a long sigh. Now that the Great Summer Country's 4 states' Lake Fleet's cannons have been sent here, we've used up all our strength and resources in this battle. There's no other way. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. What should they do? Miracle City's defensive line had not been broken, but their defensive power had been greatly reduced. Chapter 984. Move it quickly. We have many soldiers who are injured and need treatment. We need to quickly send these medicines over to everyone. How are the canned food preparations going? If there is any stock, Send some over from the great summer country. We need to ensure the soldiers' food. Under Meng Yingying's orders, several hundred employees loaded boxes of supplies onto the airships. After filling up 5 airships, Meng Yingying boarded one of them with Chu Tian. They rose up from the warehouse and slowly headed for the front lines. When they arrived in front of the airship's observation window, Meng Yingying could clearly see that the beautiful miracle city had now turned into a foul atmosphere. Large pieces of the mountain had collapsed and large pieces of the forest had been burned. In just a few short days, Miracle City had turned into a scene of devastation. War was truly a demon. Miracle City had lost over 40,000 soldiers and over 70 to 80,000 people were injured, which was even less than the attackers. The main reason was that Miracle City had deployed large amounts of source energy weapons to defend, and they had ended the battle at a critical moment when the battle was about to fall into a dangerous situation. If the battle had dragged on for another day, the casualties would have increased by several times. Meng Yingying was a bit sad. Our Miracle City has good mountains and rivers, but now many places have been destroyed beyond recognition. Chu Tian gently hugged her shoulder. Don't be sad, Miracle City has the ancient Tree of Life. I believe that with the Tree of Life's power, it is very easy to repair the mountains and forests. Meng Yingying nodded in a gratified manner. Warriors of Miracle City. The enemy has been completely defeated. Miracle City has won. City Lord Chu Tian and the Production Minister Meng Yingying have personally come to congratulate everyone, preparing food and medicine for everyone. Everyone can be assured, your sacrifice for Miracle City will not be in vain. Every drop of blood you shed for Miracle City will make Miracle City even more prosperous, protecting your future generations. Each brave warrior that fights for Miracle City will forever be remembered by Miracle City. Before the airships landed, there were shouts coming from their loudspeakers. When the citizens and soldiers heard this, they all cheered out. This victory was too incredible. This was the fruit of victory that belonged to every Miracle City member. The 5 airships slowly landed. Under Chu Tian and Meng Yingying's personal command, the boxes of canned food and medicine were brought out and sent into the hands of the citizens and soldiers. There was a call for mobilization from all over the city. Meng Qingwu personally gave a speech, first praising the victory before she sent out a call for mobilization. The surrounding tribes had suffered heavy losses in the battle, so they needed to mobilize everyone in and out of Miracle City to join in the repair work. When the order was given, the entire city responded. Whether it was the gnomes in Miracle City or the people from the surrounding tribes, they all responded. Following this, the 200,000-300,000 people split into small teams, running to different tribes to do the repair work. The entire scene was filled with noise, making people feel a strange feeling in their hearts. This was a kind of warmth that he had never felt before. It was more like a sense of belonging to his home. Miracle City had not just obtained victory this time, it also promoted the unity of the local tribes and Miracle City. The Miracle Broadcasting Station seized this chance to report the situation in the various regions in real time, publicizing the positive and hot-blooded events that happened during the war, promoting the harmonious scene of the tribes and the city united as a family. They even planned to make a related movie. In short, for several hundred years, the tribes in the forest had been in conflict with each other, and the tribes often had conflicts with the city. After this experience of fighting together, it greatly increased the friendship between the tribes and the city. Chu Tian and Yingying were busy distributing the supplies. Nangong Yun anxiously rushed over to ask, "Boss, we've caught a total of 60,000 captives. What should we do with them?" "This many?" Nangong Yun didn't wait for a reply and first said her own opinion. "I think we should just kill them. Since they are invading other people's homes, they should be prepared to pay the price with their lives. Killing them will raise the morale of Miracle City's people and intimidate these thieves, making it so that the enemies won't dare invade again." "This is over 60,000 people." Meng Yingying revealed a look of disbelief. "Kill over 60,000 people? What kind of blood would flow like a river? This method is just too cruel. What else can we do if we don't kill them?" Nangong Yun was an extreme martial artist, but she wasn't a bloodthirsty person. She felt that killing them was wrong, But she couldn't think of a better method. These are all villains that have invaded Miracle City. Many of their hands are dyed with the blood of Miracle City's people. If we let them go like this, it will affect the morale of Miracle City's people. Meng Yingying gave a suggestion. But our Miracle City will need to expand in the future and we will need to deal with further tribes. If we kill 60,000 people at once and most of these people are locals, I'm afraid it will arouse their hostility towards Miracle City, which is not good for our company's development in the future. What you say isn't wrong. Nangong Yun didn't know what to do. She couldn't kill them and couldn't not kill them. 60,000 mouths had to be eaten. Miracle City's finances were already collapsing. How could they support all these people in the long term? Boss, you should make the decision. You still need to ask me such a simple question? We can't release them like this. They are our own sins, so of course we have to pay the price. Chu Tian rolled his eyes. But there's no need to kill them. Go find the young miss and make a list of the prices of the captives. Send the list to the tribes and cities and have them redeem them with money. As for the price, of course the darker the better. What if they don't redeem them? Don't redeem them? Then they can't blame Miracle City. After all, Miracle City gave the captives a chance, but their tribes gave up on this chance. Miracle City is already being extremely benevolent. Chu Tian paused before saying, if they don't redeem them for a long time, then lock them up as slaves for Miracle City or sell them to slave traders. In short, the ransom or other income will all be used as compensation for the casualties. Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun's eyes lit up. This method was good. Not only did it leave some leeway to not offend these locals, it would create a benevolent image in the forest. It would also give the Miracle City people more compensation, easing Miracle City's financial situation and stabilizing the hearts of the Miracle City people. Boss is too smart, we'll do it like this. Right now the entire Miracle City was busy repairing after the battle. Chu Tian was the city lord, so naturally he had to personally reward the citizens and soldiers. Therefore, he brought the production minister Meng Yingying to give out benefits and rewards. Nangong Yun was the city defense and military minister in Miracle City. Her task was to deal with the captives and repair the source energy weapons. Dolores was the minister of commerce and finance, so of course she had to calculate the losses and comfort the tribes. Dongfang Haoran was Miracle City's general, so he had to clean up the troops and let Miracle City's army recover their battle strength. Meng Qingwu was in charge of the overall situation, so of course she was the busiest person. Not only did she have to deal with the talismans, she also had to plan the repairs after the battle. Luckily there was Smart Brain Zero's help, so she didn't need anyone else to help her with this large amount of work. The Elven King was completely forgotten on the side. Of course the Elven King Lancelot didn't care about these small matters. While he was helping the flower fairies cultivate the ancient tree of life in the Miracle Gardens, he was also observing Miracle City's situation. When Lancelot saw that Miracle City had suffered such a large disaster, they actually recovered in an orderly manner. There was no chaos during the entire process, which made him very shocked. There were over 10 races living in Miracle City's area. Not to mention this kind of chaotic time, even in normal situations, it would be very chaotic. The different races in Miracle City all seemed to have a tacit understanding. They all wished for Miracle City to be strong from the bottom of their hearts, which was a very rare scene in the Forest of Chaos. Although Chu Tian's team was a bit immature, they had already displayed outstanding abilities. Finally, Miracle City's pacification work was finished. Chu Tian gathered the city's high management, Clark, and the various tribe leaders for a meeting, mainly commending everyone for their good performance in the city's crisis. Chu Tian also gave the 100,000 citizens to the various tribes. The tribes in the Miracle Mountain Ridge were like villages and Miracle City was like a large city. The villagers being able to enter the large city was a matter worth being proud of. After all, if they lived in Miracle City, not only would they be safer, they would also receive many benefits as citizens in the future, making their lives more colorful. Chu Tian gave the 200,000 slots. This was a very good thing for these tribes. Dolores finally let out a long sigh of relief after the meeting was over. It's finally over. We need to think of a way to make money. The hole in our funds is too big. Meng Qingwu asked, Zero, how long can our financial situation last? Reporting to Sir City Lord, most of our resources have been invested into the reconstruction budget after the war. Zero truthfully replied, because the surrounding tribes have been heavily injured and the industrial park has been damaged, Miracle Bank has large amounts of bad debts. Miracle Commerce's current financial situation is not enough to cover it. If we continue with our current expenditure and income, we estimate that our finances will collapse in 2-3 months. Meng Qingwu tightly knit her brows. It's actually this serious? It seems like we need to open new markets as soon as possible and obtain new income to cover our current situation. Actually, with Miracle Commerce's conditions and abilities, if they were given a year or so to stabilize, these problems would not be a problem at all. The problem was, would there really be such a chance? Meng Qingwu could foresee that in the future, Miracle City would become the focus of the entire forest. They could barely hold on now, but they couldn't let it become chaotic in the future. If there was another similar battle, Miracle City really wouldn't be able to hold on. When Meng Qingwu was thinking of countermeasures, Meng Yingying called. She anxiously shouted, Elder sister, this is bad, quickly come to the transport tower. There are many people coming from the Eternal Forest and they're all shouting that they want to steal our Miracle City. Chapter 985. The Heaven's Eye airship looked over the entire battlefield. The radar made it impossible for people to hide. No matter how fast Cao's army moved, they couldn't escape Meng Qingwu's grasp. Now that Cao's army had a large change, they should be preparing for an all-out attack. This meant that there would be an even more intense battle coming up. Miracle City's greatest disadvantage was their lack of a city protecting barrier, but their source energy weapons were their greatest advantage. Cao clearly wanted to spread out Miracle City's firepower, making it easier for his main force to enter Miracle City. This plan wasn't bad. Zero, analyze the situation. Yes, Sir Vice City Lord. Zero's voice came from the speaker in the room before falling into a few seconds of silence. It was most likely he was using a supercomputer to complete a large calculation. The second smart brain has analyzed the data and the results are as follows. The number of enemies is between 800,000 and 900,000 and it is still increasing. The enemy has been deployed, the first south area has 50,000, the second area has 80,000, the third area. From the current situation, most of the life signatures are moving to the south, but their life signatures are not high, it is a feint. There are large amounts of strong life signatures on the west side. Although there aren't as many as the south side, it is still the enemy's main force. I suggest we deploy the heavy weapons to the west and use the ground troops and a few source energy weapons to block the south, immediately. The southern defensive line that suffered the most damage today was the one that suffered the heaviest attack. Cao's main camp was also on the south side. According to normal logic, the attack should be focused on this position. There was something wrong with Cao's army deployment now. They seemed to have placed a large number of troops on this side, but it was just a feint. The main force of the four cities' army was attacking from the west, crossing over 100 miles. Did they want to catch Miracle City off guard? With the second Smart Brain's warning system, this kind of thing would never happen. After Meng Qingwu understood the situation, she still couldn't be optimistic. Can you analyze the success rate of the next wave of attacks based on the current weapons and army situation? Zero was silent for a few seconds before saying, I'm sorry, Vice City Lord. Because the battlefield is too big and there are too many variables, it already surpasses my calculations. Adding in the lack of data on the enemy, I can't give an accurate number. But if we use a rough calculation, I think it's less than 30%. Less than 30%? It wasn't just Meng Qingwu who knit her brows this time, the others all felt very serious. Where is the city lord at this time? Dongfang Haoren was a bit confused. In this kind of critical moment, wasn't it time for Chu Tian to show his usefulness? He should have a way. Meng Qingwu was filled with anger thinking of Chu Tian. This bastard had taken Vivian to the Eternal Forest, but the result was nothing and he even brought Vivian down with him. It was fine if you said that, They just had to think of another way. Who would have thought that after Chu Tian came back, he would hide in the garden and no one knew what he was doing? Miracle City can't hold on, we have to call him out to think of a way no matter what. Just wait, I'll call him. Meng Yingying called Chu Tian's number and was prepared to fiercely reprimand Chu Tian. Who would have thought that before she could say anything, Chu Tian would say a bunch of things first. What did you say? Oh, wait a bit. Meng Yingying put away the phone and looked at the others with a strange expression. Chu Tian is calling everyone to the garden. Miracle City was already in danger and Chu Tian was calling them to the garden? Meng Yingying explained. Chu Tian said that Miracle City's predicament is about to be solved and the solution is in the garden. He wants us to quickly go and help. Nangong Yun shouted, what about Miracle City? What if the enemy attacks again? Dongfang Haoren took the initiative to say, me and the great summer marquises have a good understanding of the source energy weapons, so we can temporarily defend the situation. Since the city lord is confident in solving the problem, we should ask everyone to quickly go. They could only do this. Normal people couldn't understand Chu Tian's thoughts, but they trusted Chu Tian and hoped that Chu Tian could do something shocking. Therefore, they gave the command to Dongfang Haoren and the other great summer marquises and they quickly ran to the miracle gardens. Chu Tian's spirit-gathering array had a camouflage effect, so they couldn't see the situation inside from the outside. However, once they entered the barrier, it was like they were in a different world. The spiritual energy in the garden was completely sealed, so it was a place filled with life. Now, it was enveloped by an incomparably vigorous life force. The entire garden was covered in a layer of faint green light. With every breath he took, he could feel pure life force pouring into his body. The life energy here was strong and pure, just like a giant energy field. Even if they were cut by a knife, the terrifying life energy would quickly heal the wound. Chu Tian was standing beside a six-pointed star array. This primitive spatial aura-gathering device had been in operation for several days. It was like a squeezer, squeezing out the primitive spatial aura from the subspace. Since it was in operation, it had squeezed out at least 100 subspaces. Several dozen energy columns had been used up. These energy columns were refined from Oldman Small Town's new oil. The total amount of energy could keep Miracle City running for several months, but it had been used up in just a few days. We're about to succeed. We're about to succeed. Sisters, everyone put in a bit more effort. Lulu had led over 100 flower fairies to fight for several days. They looked very tired now, but they were very excited and happy. In the center of the flower fairies, there was a thing floating in the air. It was a bead-sized thing that was completely translucent green, releasing a bright light. The energy in the entire garden was released by this little thing. What is this? Nangong Yun stared at the glowing thing with wide eyes. Something that can release such a strong life energy, perhaps it's a supreme divine item. Miracle City has this kind of thing, how come I didn't know about it? Meng Qinggu knit her brows as she looked at it for a minute. Large chunks of heavenly book memories appeared in her mind. The Tree of Life Seed, this is a fully activated Tree of Life Seed. The Tree Ants and Flower Fairies had asked Chu Tian to help awaken the seed, but the Flower Fairies were usually in charge of it, so Meng Qinggu had never seen it before. The reason why Meng Qinggu could recognize it was mainly because of her special source spirit. Meng Qinggu's source spirit had countless ancient memories sealed in it. Only when she met the corresponding item would these memories awaken. Meng Qinggu finally understood what Chu Tian wanted to do. Young Miss, Yingying, Nangong, what are you looking at? Chu Tian pulled everyone into the array without any explanation. The Tree of Life has already been activated, now is the best time for it to germinate. We have to lock in the energy for the flower fairies, allowing it to display its greatest effect. This seed's growth is related to Miracle City's future, so whether it succeeds or fails, quickly come over. There was no time to slowly explain. Several people poured their spirit energy into the source energy array under Chu Tian's command, releasing an energy cover around them. After the energy the flower fairies poured into the seed bounced off, it was reflected back when it hit the energy cover. It would not disappear and would continue to be used. The over 100 flower fairies worked together to activate it. The tree of life's seed absorbed more and more essence, and the light became brighter and brighter. The life energy it released was even more vigorous, but this life energy couldn't break through Chu Tian's little barrier. It was completely sealed inside, forming a glass cover filled with a green light. Chu Tian, Meng Qingwu, Meng Yingying, and Nangong Yun were all immersed in this ancient life energy. Although the energy was very strong, it did not harm the body at all. It could even be absorbed by the human body to achieve the effect of increasing one's cultivation. After all, this was an ancient tree of life seed. Even a single seed could be considered a divine-grade seed. Chu Tian could clearly feel his spirit energy growing. The surrounding energy was very rich, and if he absorbed it all into his body, it wouldn't be a problem for his cultivation base to increase by several layers. But Chu Tian quickly suppressed this thought. Increasing his cultivation base by several layers was very attractive, but this energy was the key to nurturing the tree of life seed. If he absorbed too much, it would affect the seed's germination. His cultivation base could increase at any time. If he missed the tree of life, there wouldn't be another one. Time passed like this, second by second. At this time, the sounds of killing filled the sky outside Miracle City. Cao's army launched a wild storm of attacks at Miracle City again. Miracle City's defensive firepower had weakened by quite a bit. Not only did Cao's main army retain their battle strength, they also gathered a large number of forest tribes. Under these waves of attacks, Miracle City was like a small boat struggling in a wild storm. Miracle City can't hold on much longer. Kill your way in and slaughter them all. The morale of the four cities' army was high and Miracle City's defenders were pushed back again and again. Cao revealed a cold smile. He understood that there was no suspense in this battle. Miracle City's destruction was already a foregone conclusion and the city was destined to turn to ashes. He made a hand signal to the experts beside him led by Kino. When they attacked Miracle City, they would immediately capture all of Miracle City's high-level members and researchers. As for resources, let these brainless fellows steal them. Just as Cao's plan was about to succeed, an unexpected situation occurred. There was a strong fluctuation in the center of Miracle City that spread several hundred miles in the blink of an eye. It was like the earth was breathing. The wind and clouds in the sky changed as lightning flashed and thunder roared. Several dozen bolts of lightning fell down. They suddenly fell in the center of Miracle City. The second wave, the third wave, the fourth wave. They were baptized by 9 waves of divine lightning. Finally, a powerful pressure was released from the center of Miracle City, instantly covering a range of over 1,000 miles. What kind of powerful divine might and power was this? The forest that had been destroyed in the battle was instantly revived and new shoots came out. The wounds of the soldiers were instantly healed, making people feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze. The impact of this power and the range it affected was not something normal people could understand. No matter who saw it, their minds would turn blank and there would only be one thought left. A spiritual god had appeared. That's right, only a spiritual god could have this kind of momentum. Whether it was the Dragon Palace in the depths of the Dragon's Ridge, the black dragon sleeping in countless crystals, or the Titan standing on top of the giant's palace covered in lightning, or the savage highlands looking down from above, or even the ruler hiding in the darkness underground, or the large characters in the Western Sea, they were all alarmed by the movements in the center of the forest of chaos. Chapter 986. The thing Meng Qingwu was most worried about had finally happened. The ancient tree of life being planted in Miracle City would attract the attention of the forest giants, making the relationship between Miracle City and the Eternal Forest even more complicated. This was because the ancient tree of life was like a god to the wood elves, just like how the demonic god religion worshipped the little fox. How could the elves allow such an important divine item to be possessed by a group of outsiders? If this conflict couldn't be resolved, there would be a large problem. In front of the Eternal Forest, Miracle City's strength was too insignificant. Meng Qingwu did not dare be negligent. She put down what she was doing and rushed over. Vivian wanted to build the transport tower for the Eternal Forest to benefit both Miracle City and the Eternal Forest, but when several dozen Elven Council members were sent over, the entire matter developed in a completely unexpected direction. The ancient tree of life had already grown to around 2 meters in just 2-3 days. The life energy it released was even more vigorous, and it began to display its abilities. This divine tree was planted in the center of the garden, and it immediately connected to the several hundred-mile spiritual veins. It extracted even more pure spiritual energy from the depths of the spiritual veins, nourishing the surrounding soil by 10 to 100 times. Its effect surpassed the best spirit-gathering array. Miracle City's spiritual energy increased day by day, and each grain of soil was filled with energy. The ancient tree of life could continuously release life energy, nourishing all the surrounding plants and animals, especially the elixirs in the garden. Their growth in a day was equivalent to a month of growth in the past. In other words, the growth of a sacred herb in several weeks was equivalent to a year in a normal environment. If an herb was planted for several years, wouldn't it become a 1,000-year-old herb? Even if Miracle City didn't do anything, they could just buy large amounts of low-aged herbs and sell them to earn large amounts of money. Not to mention the fact that the ancient tree of life had just been born for a few days, its growth potential was unimaginable. Who wouldn't be tempted by this kind of divine object? Not to mention the ancient tree of life had a special meaning to the Eternal Forest's elves. Once the ancient tree of life was planted, it would be very difficult to transplant it. At least they didn't have the conditions to transplant it right now. The Eternal Forest's elves had no other choice. They could only think of one method, which was to take Miracle City away and let Miracle City become an elven city again. This was something Vivian never thought of. You don't have the strength to protect Miracle City, and you don't have the strength to protect the ancient tree of life. The Elven Council member had a firm attitude as he pointed at Chu Tian's nose and shouted, "This tree is too important to the elves. This is the elves' supreme divine object. Could it be you want to take it for yourself?" That's right. From today on, Miracle City will be protected by the Eternal Forest. Another Elven Council member said, "Of course, the Eternal Forest will remember everything you have done for the Eternal Forest. The elves will give you enough compensation." The Elven Council's attitude was very consistent. Even Ulysses wanted the elves to personally protect the city. Meng Qingwu felt that the situation had become troublesome when she saw this. The Elven Council's attitude was very firm, like there was no room for negotiation. Miracle Commerce had put in so much effort into Miracle City, how could they just give it up like this? Haha, are you playing dumb, or have you all lost your memories? Chu Tian took out a scroll from his chest. Miracle City has completely severed its relationship with the Eternal Forest. The Eternal Forest's Elven Council and the Elven King have agreed to recognize Miracle City's sovereignty and will not violate it. This contract has the signatures of every member and the Elven King. Could it be that the elves who respect the law and the spirit of contracts are going to go against it today? The Elven Council members all had ugly expressions. Now they finally understood that they had been tricked by Chu Tian. This fellow had definitely been deliberately drawing a line with the Eternal Forest a few days ago. He had already expected this situation after the ancient tree of life appeared. Chu Tian continued to say, "You elves who boast of your civilization, are you prepared to go back on your words?" The expressions of the Elven Council members all changed. Although the elves were divided into conservative and reformist factions, they were still the elves in the end. They were very protective of contracts and laws. After all, this represented the spirit of the elves and was the reason why the elves were so confident. Augusta stood up in a bit of anger. "Human, this is such an obvious trick. Do you think the elves don't have brains? You can say whatever you want." Chu Tian laughed. "The Eternal Forest is 100 times stronger than Miracle City, and Miracle City is definitely weak. Bullying the weak and breaking the contract, what can I do? Just come. At worst you can kill me and show the hypocrisy of the elves to the world." "Big Brother Chutan, don't be angry." Vivian saw that the situation was bad and she quickly stood up. "Grandpa Speaker, why do you have to force Big Brother Chu Tian? If there wasn't Big Brother Chu Tian, would Miracle City still be Miracle City? Why can't we work together? Don't worry, the fairy clan disdains bullying the weak. Augusta gave a cold snort. It's just a contract made from a piece of paper, it can't bind the eternal forest. The elves will take back Miracle City legally. Chu Tian gave Vivian a look. How hard was it to deal with this group of rotten wood? The elves had a fatal flaw in their character. No matter how old they were, no matter how long they lived or how much knowledge they accumulated, they would always be simple and inflexible. The elves' tedious laws, Chu Tian could find dozens of loopholes even with his eyes closed. Also, with the elves' slow work efficiency, if they really wanted to argue with Chu Tian, who knew when they would be able to come to a conclusion? Ulysses had interacted with Chu Tian before, so he knew that this wasn't a good idea. He immediately gave a suggestion. Chu Tian, we know that you've invested your heart and soul into Miracle City. The elves are not an unreasonable race. Why don't we trade cities for cities to compensate you? What trade cities? Bring the map over. Ulysses opened a large map, circling an area in the southern part of the Forest of Chaos. This forest is called the Silver Moon Forest. It is not worse than Miracle City in every aspect. The elves have been in Silver Moon City for 5,000 years. It is several times more prosperous than the several hundred-year-old Miracle City. Not only are there no opponents in the surrounding several thousand miles, there is also a perfect natural barrier and city defense system. If you can enter it, you will have all the resources in your hands. You will still be the city lord of the forest, but your wealth will increase by 10 times. Meng Qingwu was speechless hearing this from the side. These elves were really willing to take out their hands. The other elven counselors revealed difficult expressions. The Silver Moon Forest was the most prosperous city in the Eternal Forest, and in order to obtain Miracle City, they actually made this kind of decision. This was truly hard on them. We won't trade. Ooh. The elven counselors slapped the table one by one. This human was too arrogant. The elves had clearly made a large concession and given the compensation. What else did he want? There was a reason why Chu Tian disdained Silver Moon City. Silver Moon City was an elven city and the elves were a highly xenophobic race. If Chu Tian chose to accept the elven city, once the elves left, it would be the same as obtaining an empty city. What use did he have for an empty city? How could Chu Tian care about this bit of wealth and benefits in front of him? In comparison to Miracle City, although it wasn't complete in all aspects, Chu Tian had already gained a foothold here. This place had the best laboratory and the most scholars in the forest and was in the center of the Forest of Chaos, containing a large amount of potential. The most important thing was the ancient Tree of Life. It had a very important meaning to Chu Tian. You have to understand, I'm not doing this for myself. This is also for the Eternal Forest and the elves. Chu Tian knew that he had to use reason to deal with these elves. The Eternal Forest's rule over Miracle City has 3 fatal flaws. Not only will it make it impossible for you to protect the ancient Tree of Life, it will even cause the entire Eternal Forest to fall into danger. Nonsense. Alarmist words. Chu Tian didn't care what these old elves said as he continued to explain. First, Miracle City and the surrounding several thousand miles are filled with many different races. This is not compatible with the elves. The elves' culture cannot be established here at all. Could it be that the elves want to chase away these 10 million people? Second, the elves are slow and have no motivation. It would be fine if it was a normal city. You can slowly build a city with your long lifespan. But Miracle City is a land of war and there is the ancient Tree of Life as a fuse. Do you still have time to slowly build a city? Third, the ancient Tree of Life is a relic from the great ancient era, so the elves will naturally have a large increase in strength once they obtain it. However, the ancient Tree of Life needs a very long time to grow. Do you think the other forest powers will sit and watch you grow? Chu Tian clearly wasn't speaking nonsense. At least the elves had no choice but to face these problems. How would the Eternal Forest develop in Miracle City and how would they face pressure from all sides? Of course, these problems were not considered by the Elven Council. Although the elves didn't like fighting, they had absolute confidence in their own strength. They did not fear fighting against the forest giants, they just wanted to bring back the ancient Tree of Life. The ancient tree of life was too important to the elves. When Augusta was prepared to refute Chu Tian's words aren't wrong. The elven king who didn't say anything from the start spoke up, "Let's not discuss Miracle City's matters for now. I'm afraid we have some trouble." Trouble? What trouble? While everyone was puzzled, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the sky. It was as if a hole had been punched in the sky. Soon after, several shadows appeared on the horizon. One of them was a huge shadow. From afar, it was at least 100 meters long. Its entire body was pitch black and covered in black scales. It had an incomparably huge pair of wings. Wherever it flew, even the forest was torn apart by its powerful aura. Augusta's expression fell. "This is Dragon Lord." The elven king Lancelot had a serious expression. "Deathwing Nidhogg." Chapter 987. The thousands of years of peace in the eternal forest was completely broken. The elven singing stopped for the first time in thousands of years, and the millions of elves stopped creating art. They all left their little tree houses and gathered in front of the elven king's palace. They were densely packed like an ocean, each one looking up, waiting for the news to be announced. The elven king convened an emergency elven council. Whether it was the gentle elven king or the serious Augusta, they all had very serious expressions. "Everyone, there is no need to doubt it. This is the power of the ancient tree of life." The ancient tree of life was no different from an ancient spiritual god. After the great ancient era, this kind of divine object could not continue existing in this world. Although the elves, tree ants, and flower fairies had tried to make the ancient tree of life sprout seeds for tens of thousands of years, they did not have much hope. Who would have thought that the ancient tree of life would appear again? This had a very high meaning to the elves. The legends say that the wood elves were born under the protection of the ancient tree of life and had not gone extinct since the great ancient era. The ancient tree of life was not just the ancestor of the elves, it was also the origin of the elven civilization. It was also the source of the elves' power. The ancient tree of life's birth had a very large meaning to the elves. The tree ants and flower fairies chose to believe Chu Tian in the past. It seems like this was the right decision. The elven vice speaker Ulysses had a face filled with excitement and joy. "This must be Chu Tian's masterpiece. This is too incredible, he actually did it." Augusta's long white fur trembled a few times. This was also done by that brat? What kind of divine object was the ancient tree of life? A despicable and despicable human. Even if he had a bit of intelligence, how could he awaken this kind of divine object? The elven king Lancelot spoke. "No matter the reason for the ancient tree of life's reappearance, I think it is fate's arrangement. This is a large auspicious sign. Our race is destined to prosper once again. Only the ancient tree of life's appearance has shaken the entire forest. Those fellows should have felt it. We have to personally protect the ancient tree of life." "Your Majesty is right," Ulysses said in an approving voice. "The ancient tree of life has appeared in Miracle City and Miracle City is in danger. We can't just sit back and do nothing." This. Augusta was still as stubborn as a rock. The eternal forest can never participate in any disputes. This is a rule passed down by the elves for tens of thousands of years. Do we have to abandon the law of the elves? The elven king Lancelot was not prepared to give in to Augusta this time. The elven law was set down by the ancestors, and the ancestors set this law to regulate the elves' lives. Now that the era is different, if we stubbornly stick to the ancestors' rules, they will become a shackle to the elves. The ancient tree of life is the belief of the elves. We can't abandon our beliefs and beliefs. That's right. The council members on the elven king's side all stood up. These people all saw the golden opportunity of a lifetime. The elven law and etiquette had bound the elves for tens of thousands of years. If they could use this chance to break it, the elves would have a chance to rise again. No, this goes against the elves' spirit of law. Augusta fell into a dilemma. This matter is very important. We have to discuss it properly. After all, changing the law is a master. This needs to be discussed by the council. There's no time, Sir Speaker. Ulysses stood up with a serious expression and said, Every minute we delay now, Miracle City will be in more danger. Perhaps because we are late by a minute, the ancient tree of life will be destroyed. Perhaps because we are late by a minute, not only will the elves regret it for eternity, we will become sinners for all eternity. Sir Speaker, do you want to be despised by your descendants and the elves forever? That's right. Sir Speaker. We should make a move. The ancient tree of life is not normal, we can rebuild it after the law is broken. I think even our ancestors will understand us. This time it wasn't just the reformist elves who wanted to make a move, even the traditional Elven Council members wanted to make a move. It was rare for the Elven Council to be united, but the Elven Council's leader was Augusta. If he didn't nod his head, the Elven Council couldn't make a decision. Sir Speaker has always stressed that the elves are a civilized race and each elf has the right to make decisions. Now let's see the will of the people. The Elven King did not give Augusta time to hesitate. The millions of elves in the forest raised their heads in anticipation. The Elven King appeared on the balcony of the castle at this time, and his voice spread through the eternal forest with the wind. Although it wasn't loud, it was like there was an invisible force that clearly reached the ears of each elf. I have a piece of good news for everyone. The ancient tree of life has been reborn. With these words, the elves all began to loudly cheer. The ancient tree of life is the origin of the wood elves. It has an even brighter power than the well of eternity. The elves will become even stronger under the protection of the ancient tree of life. The elves were filled with excitement as they excitedly hugged and shouted. This was a historical moment for the elves. But now the ancient tree of life is in danger, it can be destroyed at any moment. The Elven King paused and the entire forest was filled with chaos. The elves were all worried about the ancient tree of life. We are now faced with two choices. The first is to follow the ancestral rules and stay in the forest. This way we can avoid fighting and we can live in peace, but the ancient tree of life could be destroyed or taken away. The second is to change the laws and leave the forest. We will defend the ancient tree of life and the elves' faith, fighting for a better era and future for the elves. However, we will also be drawn into the flames of war. There will be blood, sacrifices, deaths, and even more dangers. Now, as the citizens of the eternal forest, as someone who has grown up bathed in the light of the well of the sun, please make a choice. As soon as the Elven King's voice fell, save the ancient tree. Save the ancient tree. Save the ancient tree. The entire eternal forest was filled with waves of voices. Each elf expressed their strong will and each elf was filled with passion. The Elven King turned around. Chairman, I think as the Elven Council's chief and a staunch supporter of democracy, you should make a decision. AI, this kind of decision, I don't know if it's right or wrong. Augusta's face twitched a few times, but he still helplessly made a decision in the end. He understood that the ancient tree of life could give the elves a stronger power, but it could also create a strong enemy for the elves, causing the eternal forest to be embroiled in an unprecedented battle. The elves were naturally kind and didn't like killing. Was this right or wrong? Was this a blessing or a curse? First save the ancient tree of life, we'll discuss other matters later. Alright, it's decided. After the chairman agreed, this matter was easy to handle. The Elven Council announced the news and the eternal forest was shaken once again. Each elf returned home and took out the longbows and swords they hadn't used in many years. They all aggressively left the forest to save Miracle City. What kind of nonsense is this? Augusta saw that the elves were messy and shouting. It was destroying the elegance and civilization of a race. Although the eternal forest's elves are very strong, Miracle City is too far from here. We won't be able to make it in time if we move like this. The Elven King thought about it. Go, call Vivian over. Vivian had been under house arrest for several days and her haze had been swept away. Her brows were raised and her face was filled with joy. She came over in high spirits. Royal Father, do you see this? Big Brother Chu Tian did it, he really did it. He is the great benefactor of the elves. I said that he would have a way. Let's not talk about this for now. The Elven King shook his head. Miracle City is in danger, we have to go save them. Do you have more Miracle City scrolls? Vivian knit her brows. This scroll is made from an Eye of the Star fragment. There aren't many left in Miracle City. I only brought this one. Only one? I have a way. Vivian took out an Eye of the Star from her storage pocket. Although I don't know how to make a transport scroll, I can make a transport tower. This Eye of the Star was a cultivation technique that Big Brother Chu Tian left for me. Now we can make a transport tower in the Eternal Forest, and everyone can directly go to Miracle City. How long do you need? At least 3 days. No, 3 days is too long. The Elven King held Vivian's transport scroll in his hand. If it's like this, I'll go first. Vivian's eyes lit up. Royal Father is personally going to Miracle City? That's great. With Royal Father personally making a move, there's nothing to fear from those shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Augusta was a bit worried. Your Majesty is the highest leader of the elves and the ruler of the Eternal Forest. If you personally get involved, perhaps it will alarm Dragon City, Titan City, and Beast King City. The elves are not prepared to directly clash with them. The Eternal Forest hadn't participated in a battle in thousands of years. There had to be a gradual process of adaptation. If we have to fight sooner or later, there is no need to be afraid. Sir Speaker doesn't need to worry. The Elven King gently flicked his finger and the scroll automatically opened, releasing spatial energy. Vivian, I'll leave the matter of building the transport tower to you. Please be assured, Royal Father. It was unknown how happy Vivian was in her heart. Today's matter was a milestone for the elves, and what made Vivian very happy was that she could build a transport tower in the Eternal Forest without needing the permission of elder sister Meng Qingwu and big brother Chu Tian. After all, this matter happened suddenly. Vivian also had her own selfish motives. She hoped that the Eternal Forest would become better and better. The construction of this transport tower was enough to have an immeasurable influence on the Eternal Forest. The Eternal Forest and Miracle City were destined to be closely connected. Chapter 988. Nidhogg. There weren't many people in the forest who knew this name because people were used to calling him the Dragon Lord or Deathwing. No one knew how long Deathwing had lived for. With a lifespan of several tens of thousands of years, he should have just reached middle age among the giant dragons. Deathwing, who was at least 10-20,000 years old, could be considered one of the oldest beings in the Forest of Chaos. Deathwing occupied the Dragon's Ridge. It was said that Dragon City was a city made of treasures, and the treasures there could be piled up into the sky. The dragons all had a strong hobby of collecting, and Deathwing Nidhogg was one of the best. He had an almost infinite lifespan and a strength that could look down on all living beings, giving him enough time to plunder and collect treasures. There was no doubt. Deathwing Nidhogg was the most famous collector in the Forest of Chaos. Other than that, Deathwing was the richest person in the Forest of Chaos. This Dragon Lord was a pure bloodline black dragon, specializing in dark and death energy. Therefore, the people he gathered were mostly evil people. There were quite a few dark races recruited from underground, like the Dark Elves, the Dark Spirit Beasts, the Demons, and etc. There were even quite a few liches working for him. His influence was very strong, covering the sky with one hand. A single sneeze from him could cause a riot in the Forest of Chaos. Too strong. This pressure was too strong. Deathwing's strength was clearly on the same level as the Elven King. But the Elven King gave people a feeling like he didn't have any strength, while Deathwing's pressure was released to the peak. This was not a normal pressure, it was a dragon's might, the might of a giant dragon. This was the might of a peak life form against a low life form. It was like an overlord at the top of the food chain looking down at a pitiful little ant. When this pressure hit Miracle City, there were some weak people with weak wills that fainted on the spot. The others were trembling and they couldn't even stand straight. Meng Qingwu and the others all had pale faces. This was the power of a giant dragon? It was not something a mortal could resist. Deathwing did not come alone, he had several dragons with him. These dragons were dragons with a slightly lower bloodline, but they were still terrifying existences that would not lose to the Eternal Forest's elven counselors. On the back of each dragon, there were a few liches, ghouls, and dark elves. So, Even if there was a difference in strength, it wasn't too big. Lancelot? I guessed you'd be here. Deathwing's giant figure released a black light and countless profound runes appeared around him. After 4-5 seconds, the light quickly dimmed and shrank. In just a few seconds, the wingspan of over 100 meters began to shrink rapidly, turning into a humanoid form that was only about 3 meters tall. Of course, this was not a human. Deathwing's strong body was still covered in dragon scales. That pair of majestic dragon wings spread open on his back, and the white bone spikes on their ends were like bone spears. His eyes were dark gold and his pupils were reptilian, long and cold. Although his body was small, his might did not decrease at all. The Elven King released a gentle and natural aura that instantly counteracted Deathwing's killing intent, letting everyone here let out a sigh of relief. We haven't seen each other in 80 years. Do you really have to release your killing intent as soon as we meet? Let's sit down and have a good chat. Deathwing's dragon wings trembled. What's the rush? Not everyone is here yet. The Elven King was a bit stunned and immediately felt something. Although he couldn't see it with the naked eye, the Elven King could see everything within 100 miles with the forest scepter. At this time, two groups of figures the size of small mountains were approaching Miracle City at the same time. The heavens and earth shook. All living beings were bowing down. This was like a scene of a deity descending. A vast pressure swept in all directions, and with the trembling of an earthquake, 15 giants appeared in their field of view. If they didn't personally see it, no one would believe that there would be such tall people in this world. Each giant was around 100 meters tall, and a human standing in front of them looked like a toe. Each giant's skin had a metallic luster, giving people a feeling of being invulnerable. At the same time, each giant's body was covered in large amounts of lightning runes. There were no pupils in their eye sockets, only burning flames of thunder. Titan. This was the Titan race. The Titan race was the highest class of giants. There weren't many of them left on the continent. They were existences that were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. The Titan's body contained the terrifying power of heavenly thunder. Therefore it had a destructive power that even gods and ghosts couldn't block. It was a terrifying race that made everyone tremble in fear. In another direction, several incomparably large figures were moving about. These figures were a bit smaller than the Titans, but they were much thicker. They looked like giant apes, but they had terrifying fangs and claws. Their large bloody mouths could easily swallow 3-5 bulls at once. Wherever these gigantic beasts passed by, there was a violent, murderous aura, and all sorts of unparalleled ferocious beasts' auras. It was enough to make any living creature retreat. Behemoth. This was the Behemoth race. The Behemoth race was also a very ancient race. The Behemoth's reproductive abilities were very poor, so they were very few in number. Moreover, the Behemoth race had a very interesting characteristic. Out of every 100 behemoths born, 99 of them would be called behemoth giant beasts. What was a giant beast? They only had strength, but their minds were simple. These behemoth giant beasts were very terrifying. They could be called natural war machines. Moreover, they had an incomparably cruel personality, being filled with a natural desire for destruction and slaughter. Out of every 100 behemoths born, there would only be one intelligent behemoth. This behemoth was the natural-born king of beasts, the king of spirit beasts. It was a natural-born leader. The people from the savage highlands and the giant mountain range are here? Chu Tian slightly knit his brows when he saw this. This matter is becoming more and more lively. The Titans and behemoths were outside Miracle City. Two figures charged into Miracle City. One was a man around the same height as a dwarf, and the other was a miniature behemoth that had shrunk several dozen times. The auras coming from these two people were not inferior to the Elven Kings. They should have used a secret technique similar to Deathwing's to shrink their bodies. Great Titan, Thunder Fury Sylvester. Golden Behemoth, Burst Claw Nukazin. These two people were also legendary characters. One was the highest leader of the giant mountain range, and the other was the king of beasts in the savage highlands. Adding in the Dragon Lord's master and the eternal forest king. The 4 most influential people in the Forest of Chaos were all here. This was definitely a scene rarely seen in 100 years. The Elven Council speaker Augusta walked beside the Elven King and coldly looked at these fellows. "What are you doing here?" Even though Renew had become as short as a dwarf, his aura was still intimidating. He looked at Augusta and said in a slightly mocking tone, "You're still alive, old elf? It really isn't easy." Augusta's face sunk. "Thunder Fury, you better be more polite with your words." Whether it was the Titan Thunder Fury, the Behemoth Burst Claw, or the Dragon Lord Deathwing, they were all existences with incomparably long lifespans. Even the elves in front of them had already changed several times. Of course, having a long lifespan had its advantages and having a short lifespan had its advantages. The elves had the most experts and the Elven King Lancelot was not inferior to these 3. Other than that, the Elven speaker Augusta was also an expert on the same level. The highest Elven leaders of the forests under the control of the elves were only experts that were a level above them. The laws of the continent were fair. Long lifespans, weak reproduction, slow growth, and strong individual strength. Short lifespans, fast reproduction, and fast growth, group strength could not be ignored. The reason why the humans could quickly rise on the continent was because of this. Burst Claw said in a deep and heavy voice, "Lancelot, you're not going to give me an explanation for killing my people?" The Elven King revealed a faint smile. "I gave him a chance, it was him who didn't cherish it." Burst Claw's eyes were filled with a red light and a cruel killing intent appeared. It said that the Eternal Forest's current Elven King is even more elegant than the previous one. "You've only been on the throne for 100 years and haven't fought yet, how about we take this chance to compete?" The 2 of them were peak experts of the forest. If they fought in Miracle City, the situation wouldn't be good. "I have no objections if you want to compete." Deathwing seemed like he had no interest in fighting with these people, but my time is precious, so I'll go straight to the main topic. I can smell the ancient Tree of Life's scent, and with such a good thing appearing, aren't the elves prepared to let us see it? Thunder flashed around. Thunder knew when he heard this. This is the common treasure of the entire forest. The elves wouldn't want to take it all for themselves, right? The Behemoth Burst Claw's killing intent disappeared and he revealed a look of fear. If the Eternal Forest obtained the Story of Life, the Eternal Forest's influence would greatly increase. Although the Eternal Forest didn't like fighting, who would like a superpower hiding in their territory? An ancient item is a heaven-defying item. This kind of ominous thing should be destroyed. The ancient Tree of Life was undoubtedly a good thing. But whether it was the Dragon's Ridge, the Giant's Mountain Range, or the Savage Highlands, they all didn't want this thing to fall into the Eternal Forest's hands. Even if they couldn't obtain it, they had to destroy it. The elves revealed looks of high vigilance. Augusta coldly said, "If you have the ability, then come and take it yourselves." 3 against 2, the elves' chances of winning were not high. The entire Elven Council was here and there were several dozen experts from the Eternal Forest. They had the power of the ancient Tree of Life behind them, so if they fought to the death, they might have a chance of winning. Under the leadership of the 4 forest giants, there were several dozen wyverns, several dozen titans, several dozen behemoths, and over 100 elven experts. If they fought, would Miracle City still exist? When swords were drawn on all sides, an insignificant voice came from the side. "Can I say a few words?" You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.